If you connect two black holes, there's one black hole, there's one black hole, and they're connected. They're connected in space and time.
It can be,
like a portal in space-time. Now, black holes, now these are talking about naturally occurring black holes. What if we are able to open a black hole? And you can just open a black hole, step into it, and then go somewhere else in space and time. So if you get enough energy, you can potentially, and again, very theoretical and probably over-optimistic, is that you can use, if you have enough energy, you can rip open space-time, you can rip the fabric of space, you can open an Einstein-Rosenthal bridge, go to the other part of the universe in space and time, and then potentially come back. This phenomena of the first light getting out of the universe is very interesting. It is so interesting that about 50-60 years ago, the scientists were experimenting on a sort of a dish antenna, and they were getting a lot of noise, stray noise जो, तो उनको समझ नहीं आता क्यों हो रहा है, तो उनको लगा कबूतर बैठे होंगे इसकी वजह से हो रहा है. They shoot them away, nothing happened. The noise remained persistent, and that is when the birth, or rather the discovery of something which is the cosmic background radiation, or the cosmic microwave जो background आती है, जो पहले आई थी. यूनिवर्स जब 3 लाख साल पहले पैदा हुआ था, तो जब पहली बार लाइट निकली थी, जो उसका रेडिएशन था वो आज भी यूनिवर्स में गूंज रहा है. और वो यूनिवर्स का जो इतना पुराना बर्थ या लाइट का सिग्नेचर था, वो यू कैन डिटेक्ट इट इवन टुडे. इनफैक्ट व्हेन यू सी अ टेलीविजन, पुराना टेलीविजन, ये वाला नहीं, उसमें अगर कोई चैनल नहीं आता था तो कुछ आता था. तो वो जो कुछ आता था ना, वो ब्लैक और वाइट ऐसे कर कर आवाज आ ना, वेरी इरिटेटिंग. बट अ पार्ट ऑफ दैट, मे बी a % or so, was coming because of that radiation.
The original light.
The original release of light by the universe some 13.8 billion years ago.
Hi guys. In this episode of Discovery of an Author, we sit down with the amazing Srijan Pal Singh. Srijan Pal Singh is an IIM-A Gold Medalist, and a very interesting thing about him is that he was the advisor to A.P.J. Abdul Kalam, and he has worked closely with him. They were both instrumental in creating the Abdul Kalam Centre, the Abdul Kalam Foundation, which worked for the kids, establishing a lot of libraries. And after the demise of our A.P.J. Abdul Kalam, Srijan Pal Singh took over the Kalam Centre, and he has been running it. Srijan Pal Singh is also the founder of Homi Labs, which is a first of its kind future labs, which is trying to teach children the future skills in science and technology, and doing some incredible works. He has written and co-authored around 15 books. And in this particular episode, our agenda was very clear. We wanted to have a discussion around his recently released book, I Am the Universe, which basically talks about the origins of the universe. How did it start? How did it expand? What is a Big Bang? What are the black holes? And everything about the universe that you could possibly imagine. This, and also it talks about the future of humanity, and also the future of the cosmos and of the universe, and where it is actually going. Now, we really wanted this discussion to be very scientific, which it was, and we wanted to be to the point so that the kids could be inspired. My wish with this podcast, and specifically with this episode, is that parents do specifically watch this episode, that they share it with the kids. And if kids can get inspired to understand the cosmos, the universe, the space, and pursue the science, that would be our biggest win. So please watch this episode for the amazing knowledge it has on science, on space, on universe. And Srijan Pal Singh, he's a master storyteller. And the way he explained the concept was absolutely brilliant. And guys, please, if you're liking the type of content that we are bringing to you and the authors that we're bringing on the podcast, it's a very humble request to please like and subscribe. This is the only way in which we can even imagine of growing. And we also want to continue getting great authors. So please, guys, support us by subscribing and liking to our channel. Thank you.
Srijan, first of all, thank you so much. आपने हमें अपने घर बुलाया, ये अपॉर्चुनिटी दी कि वी कैन हैव अ डिस्कशन विद यू with a mind like you. I have been waiting for this opportunity for a very long time. And I'll tell you why I've been waiting this opportunity for a very long time. See, I'll tell you why we are doing what we are doing. I think it's very important for you to also understand कि हम क्यों करते हैं podcasting, right? और क्यों मैं आज यहाँ पर आया हूँ और क्यों मैं आपसे आपका time ले रहा हूँ. You know, we have been looking at the podcast since a very long time. I've been seeing what is happening outside. लोग अपने views देते हैं, opinions देते हैं. Lot of discussions happen on podcast. मुझे personally सृजन हमेशा ऐसा लगता था कि यार somewhere the information that people are talking and saying is not grounded or is something that I'm not able to find evidences anywhere. It's very much possible because people can say their public or their own personal opinions as well on anything, on any topic. So with our podcast, what is different is that all the guests that we have, they're all authors. If somebody has not written a book, वो हमारे podcast में नहीं आएंगे. तो हमने ये day one से decide करा था कि we will be talking on all the subjects in the world, but the only condition is that the one with whom we are having the conversation need to have written a book on the topic so that it is publicly available in the public domain. It gives me the confidence to be very brave with my questions as well. If somebody has written a book on a subject and it is available on public domain for everyone to access. So we do 4 recordings in a month because I can read only 4 books in a month.
That's a lot though.
Yeah, and that is a lot for me as well. So we read each and every book. Number 1 rule, whatever topic and subject आप चाहे metaphysics पे कोई बात कर लो, आप religion पे बात कर लो, आप mental health पे बात कर लो, it has to be around what is available in the public domain. Because I think viewers को इतनी हमारी responsibility बनती है कि whatever we are having discussions, अगर मैं किसी का time ले रहा हूँ, so we have to make sure that it is absolutely the concrete and the soundness of information that is going out there that anyone can validate. So that is what we do. But first, Srijan, it would be a true honor if you could just sign the book. This would be my personal collectible. I'm sorry, यहाँ बहुत notes हैं क्योंकि मैंने पूरा इसको notes बनाए हैं. But
if you are reading the book, I'll tell you this notes वाली story. In a while. So if you look at, I worked for Dr. Kalam, as you know.
Yep.
So if you took any of his books, the whole book was full of writing.
Yeah.
And ये पीछे का पेज ना पूरा ये पूरा भरा होता था. And इधर वाला भी भरा होता था. All these pages ना जहाँ भी empty space मिल गया, he will scribble and he will talk to the book. So people who read really up close, they actually talk to the book.
That is very interesting.
You have to. That's why the title of the book was also "I Am the Universe."
Yeah.
And as you know, this is first-person universe talking.
Yes.
So I wanted to actually explore that writing style, where I have experienced myself when I saw Dr. Kalam and many good readers and writers, they converse with the book. So that's why the idea was to make it into a complete conversation.
Yes.
So I want people to learn this art of reading because a lot of times people say, "पढ़ा भूल गए."
बिल्कुल.
I read something, अब याद ही नहीं है, अगले दिन ही भूल गया. So then they lose the value in reading because there's no joy of remembering something. Not everything you remember. You don't remember data, but you remember something has some wisdom has come to you. So that will happen when you have to remember something.
Yes.
So when you do a first-person conversation, you remember. So I want people to not just read this book. I want people to talk to the book.
And I think it becomes personal as well.
It's very personal.
It becomes very personal.
It is very personal. It talks about I and you. That's how the universe is talking, right?
Yes.
So that is the reason for the title also. It's not written in a third party, third person voice. It's written in a first.
Thank you so much for this, Srijan. This is absolutely beautiful, guys. This is my personal collectible now. This book will be passed on to my kids and his kids. So thank you so much. हाँ, तो you were talking about the title of the book. Actually, मैंने पहला क्वेश्चन क्या लिखा था जब मैंने टाइटल पढ़ा, मैंने कहा I am the universe. And I could be wrong. मुझे मेरे माइंड में आया I am that. जैसे I am universe से आया I am that और I am that से आया अहम ब्रह्मास्मि. Because when you say अहम ब्रह्मास्मि, I am that, I am the universe, तो मुझे पूछना था कि ये I am that title, how did it come into mind कि I want to name the book I am the universe? Was it because of the way you wanted to structure the book or the way the book is structured that it is as if the universe is telling its own story?
Both, because the root is the Sanskrit, है ना? But एक तो मैंने आपको बताया, one is the whole conversation style I want. I want people to not just read any book. I mean, this is just a good tip to, if you want to read something and remember it and be able to become truly wise out of a book, the way to do that is to have a conversation with the author. while you're reading the book. You may also criticize some of the things. You may have divergence. Then what will happen is that when you start making notes with the book and you start talking to a book, you are also able to bring other books which you have read in the past into this book. And you're able to do that lateral thinking. So conversational style, I think authors also, I love those kind of books which have short sentences, crisp, not very difficult words, but it's in a conversation. Complex things can be explained in simple words. You don't need long sentences. So if you notice, one of the things which I do is we never put commas. If there's a comma, put a full stop.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. The other part is also true. I am the universe and you are also the universe and everybody else is the universe. There's a reason in that shloka, which we often use in India, because the universe is essentially, you are in the universe and the universe is inside you. You're not an alien being to the universe. We are all children of the universe.
This right now is universe.
Everything is, we are you inside you is a universe. Yeah. Inside you there are 27 trillion cells. Inside you there are 100 trillion living organisms. So there are more living organisms inside you than the number of cells. So what are you? You're like an apartment building where other living beings are living inside you. In each apartment, each of your cell, there are approximately 4 people living. So you are not only a universe, you are a carrier of living beings.
Yes.
And what are you made up of? What is the most abundant element inside you?
Water.
So what the most abundant compound is water. So what will be the most abundant element in water? What is the most abundant?
Hydrogen.
Hydrogen, right? So your number one is hydrogen. What is the most abundant element in the universe? What are the stars made up of?
Hydrogen.
What you have in your body, maximum, universe has in them.
Yeah.
The waste product of universe, you can call it, is helium. So helium you can discard because it's inert. What is the second most abundant? Oxygen. Oxygen. Carbon, calcium, phosphorus, and so on. So the universe is more or less, with the exception of helium, the universe is entirely not only made up of the same things which you are made up of, and vice versa, but almost in the same proportion. So you are nothing unique by that sense, and yet you are so unique because you are alive. And somehow the universe chose you to be alive while using the same elements which it had. The universe is a beautiful artist, and you are a part, not just that art, but also the artist. So this is why we say what we say, that we are.
No, absolutely agreed.
Brahmasmi.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, and I think universe is perpetually there. It's present. I can see it also. And Srijan, one thing I always used to wonder sometimes, and I was thinking that I'll hold on to this question for the later part, but I can't stop myself from doing it. Why the study of space fascinated humanity more than anything else? So what I find perplexing is that हमने अब तक हमारे oceans को इतना explore नहीं करा जितने हम अपने space को explore कर चुके हैं. We have organizations and we are spending billions and billions of dollars in space exploration. But we yet have not been able to explore the ocean, which is on the planet in which we are living. Societies and civilizations are built because of the oceans and the river, not because of other planets and spaces, but because of the water. And yet, space is something that has always fascinated humanity, be it the sages, the seers, the scientists, the artists, the observers, the painter, everyone. Why, Srijan? Space में ऐसा क्या है कि हम यहाँ के भी elements उतना हमको fascinate नहीं कर पाते हैं? What's this love affair?
See, everything was made out of the universe only. So whether it's space, antariksh,
or the water, or whatever.
Antariksh is space, Brahmand is universe. Everything is made up of Brahmand only. It's made of the universe. But your question is more a psychological analysis of the human mind than the question of space versus oceans or anything else. We as human minds are excited by things which are beyond our reach. Everything which we want is what we can't afford or we can't access. It fascinates us. Plus, if you imagine yourself as a primitive human being, and that's what you were for most of your existence. We have been on this planet for about 1 million, give it 2 million years, out of which all except the last 10,000 years we were hunters. We lived in caves and we roamed around in the jungles. Last 10,000 years we learned farming, and the modern age is barely 4,000 or 5,000 years old, right? And science, modern science, is even lesser. So most of the time you were a hunter-gatherer, living out in the open, sometimes hiding in a cave. Who was your constant companion? You could run on land, you can go anywhere, that mountain, I can go there if I walk enough and I will reach it. What is beyond that mountain? Well, you get on top of that mountain and see what's beyond it, and so on. So everything which you could access, you would be fascinated, but not truly excited. But you go above, which you can't, but these birds do. But what is above these birds? Oh, there are these eagles. What is above that? Looks like this fluffy white thing, which sometimes gives you rain, which is water, which is life-giving. But what beyond that, and beyond that, and beyond that? So you are fascinated. And then the other most beautiful thing which will happen is that every few hours, every 12 or 14 hours, this lit sky, this blue lit sky would turn dark. And then instead of the sun which you can't look at because it's really, really bright, there's this beautiful other round object which comes, which keeps changing its shape and its place in the sky, accompanied with tiny shining dots, stars. And this moon which seems to make faces at you, right? What do you do then? You personify these things. All your gods went up. You know, the first thing you do, looks like sun is heat, it gives you warmth, and you need it. Night is dangerous. That's why the predators come in. But then this moon protects you in that night because it gives you some light. When you can't see in darkness, the tigers could. So moon was your companion. Moon became good. Darkness we started fearing. Why do you fear darkness? Because you can't see well in it and you are a danger. So not only the skies kept changing, the skies brought you water, the skies brought you weather in heat or cold. The skies could give you navigation because now you could point, this star remains here while this moon fellow keeps changing a bit, and then this star has a different pattern and this one has a different pattern. What do you do in the night? That's all what you do. You have nothing else to do in the night, but what you could see in the night. Imagine if you were a caveman or a cave woman, what will you see in the night? The only thing which you see in the night, and you don't have fire yet, is the sky. There's nothing visible. So that became a big fascination. Something which you would see good 8-9 hours, complete darkness, sky, it will become fascinating to you. And then lo and behold, the sun comes back. So that is something which excited us. And then we saw things like eclipses. Oh my God, there's day and now there's night. Now there's day again in a matter of a minute. So it fascinated you because it was unexplainable and incomprehensible to the human mind. We did not have the resources to do that. We have plenty of time to look at the skies. The skies were our companion. The skies were also our navigation. Go towards that star. Go towards that star. It became a navigation tool. It was our earliest GPS. So it was keeping us alive. And then when we learned farming, we also learned that plants grow better in sunlight. So it became your source of food. So we started understanding a few things. So that is the reason why skies and beyond skies, the space, became very interesting. The early human beings would not have had differentiated between space and sky. So for them, the sky turns dark, it becomes space. The space lights up, it becomes the sky, or whatever formula they used. And that is why we are so fascinated by space. It's
Till
just
date.
We'll always remain to be because it's endless. See, oceans, we know, okay, what will you do? You go to the Mariana Trench. Okay, Mariana Trench, people have seen it now. Okay, fine. We've got equipment, you can go there. You can go to the deepest point. You can go to the most dangerous point. You can go to the Bermuda Triangle. You can go to the Pacific Reef. You can explore it. It's within your grasp if you really want it. If you can spend enough money, you can go anywhere on this planet in an ocean where you want. But space, you may have whatever you want. You don't have time to go to the next solar system. At our current speed, it will take you 10,000 years. So space is fascinating because it's also endless. You still don't know. We don't know what is the edge of the universe. We sort of have an idea, but we don't know that where does it end. We didn't know that there were multiple galaxies 100 years ago. We thought there was only one galaxy and that's it. So the concept of universe being made of galaxy is also relatively new. So every now and then you start, And the beauty is the wider your lens becomes and you understand the universe, the sharper your microscope becomes. You understand more about what is really tiny, what is the basic constituent object of how things are made. So we thought electron, proton, neutron is the end of the story, but there's now more.
Yep.
And then you probably maybe your children, when they grow up, they will go even deeper. So the consistency of the universe is fascinating because nothing changes. The laws of mathematics and physics more or less remain the same. Well, mathematics does, physics sometimes bends, but the laws remain the same throughout the range of everything in the universe, from the very smallest quark to the very big quasar stars or black holes. Laws remain the same. So understanding space helps you understand everything.
Even what is happening over here.
Inside you also.
As micro level as much as possible. Everything, anything.
Yep. And survival depends on it. Even today, the earliest human beings, obviously, space was the GPS. But even today, if you don't understand space, you are risking a lot of destruction. Well, the dinosaurs didn't understand space. Look at what happened to them.
Yeah.
They didn't study space. Otherwise, they could have deflected it. Yeah. And we know now that there are asteroids similar to those, who are hurtling towards us right now. And there's a chance that there's actually an asteroid called Apophis, which might hit us.
Which might collide
in 2032.
Yep.
So, but I can guarantee you that because we understand space now and we know how to deal with it, we can deflect it.
Yeah.
So we have the technology to do that. Yeah. So maybe what happened to dinosaurs was scheduled for us, but we are smarter because we understood space.
Yeah, I think the more we understand something, the less we start fearing it and more we start finding beauty in it. I always tell people, and I give this example everywhere, I tell them, for my father, AI is magic. But ask the engineers who are developing it. It's pure science. They love it. They understand the algorithms. They understand how to manufacture the data, how to create the data, how to create predictable LLMs. That's how the world is. Either you can completely shun out of ignorance and call something miracle, or you understand how miracles are also functioning.
Absolutely.
Which then gives you science, so there is a reason behind miracles as well. So I think
miracles live where science has not reached. It lives in those little gaps of knowledge.
Absolutely.
And often that knowledge is our own doing than the global knowledge system itself. So the more you know, the less is the chance of you encountering a miracle.
Absolutely. Even I was reading this text called Vivek Chudamani by Adi Shankaracharya. And I think in one of those shlokas, he has mentioned over there that the journey from avidya to vidya is what will enlighten you. That is enlightenment. Just that journey from avidya to vidya, from not knowing to knowing, and that knowing could be applied in any vertical, in anything, right? Not just the consciousness or understanding the higher divinity, but just that knowledge. And if you apply this principle in any vertical and field, you start seeing the stark reality of things.
Correct.
You start appreciating. Oh wow!
You also, one more thing which happens is that when information turns into knowledge, it means that you have made a useful application of information. Then it becomes knowledge. Yes. But when knowledge gets a direction of ethics, it has a purpose which is noble. It becomes wisdom.
Yeah.
So from information to knowledge to wisdom is a journey. Beautiful. From information to knowledge, it requires synthesis.
Yes.
From knowledge to wisdom, it requires consciousness.
Yes.
And your own Chetana and Antaratma, conscious and conscience, when added to knowledge, becomes wisdom.
Yes.
So I think there is a lot of confusion. We often become hunters and gatherers of information.
Yes.
And that is the reason why you find things like misinformation, disinformation, and how sometimes knowing more tends to divide people.
Yes.
Because information did not become knowledge. You did not gather it from a lot of places and then synthesize it into something useful.
Absolutely.
And then knowledge has to become, truly great people make knowledge into wisdom.
Absolutely.
That is when knowledge is empowered.
Yeah.
I think the Ved does talk about this.
Yeah.
It talks about how Vidya, knowledge in general, has to have a purpose.
Yes.
And that purpose, it also says knowledge will lead to wisdom through a journey. So knowledge can become wealth, but wealth has to have a purpose.
Yes.
Then it becomes wisdom. Knowledge has to have a utility has to have an action. Then only it becomes wisdom. So when you talked about ancient scriptures, which I think is a beautiful source of not just information. See, the problem is we get lost in looking for information in Ved or other scriptures. It's beyond that. There's knowledge. What is Ayurveda? Ayurveda is knowledge, it's not information. But the useful application of knowledge of Ayurveda for the better humanity is wisdom, which maybe we found in Gita, for instance. Gita is not a book of information, it's a book of wisdom. How do you use knowledge and information for a purpose? So I think we are a blessed civilization. You and I are blessed to be a part and sharing a DNA which values and knows the journey from information to knowledge to wisdom.
Yeah. And we'll get to that ancient scriptures and India's role in detail. But I want to, Srijan, I want to start with a very generic question as well. You know, you just said that you have been writing this book for 2 years. So, कब तक आपके माइंड में इसका एक इंसेप्शन कब हुआ था कि यार I would want to expand on this subject, I would want to write a book on this subject. कब आपके इंसेप्शन हुआ था, कितने टाइम से आप लिख रहे हैं एंड आपने किसके लिए लिखी? What did you want to happen once the book was out there? What kind of people you want this book to be picked up by? Who should read it? Why should they read it? And once they are done reading with it, what do you want people to do? कैसा लगना चाहिए उनको, या क्या आपके माइंड में होना चाहिए यार मैं चाहता हूं कि एक दिन बच्चे पढ़े ये करें एंड XYZ. So I want to understand the structure, that why this book, what kind of people this book for, and what should happen when somebody has read this book as per your thought process.
Just do you want to talk in Hindi or English? क्योंकि आप हिंदी इंग्लिश दोनों बोलते हो.
दोनों चलता है अपना.
अच्छा, नहीं क्योंकि कुछ लोग फिर कमेंट करते हैं कि एक ही भाषा में बोलो. कई जगह पॉडकास्ट में ऐसा हुआ है.
अच्छा, मैं तो उनको इग्नोर कर देता हूँ.
आप इग्नोर कर देते हो, ठीक है, तो हम भी इग्नोर कर देते हैं उनको. ठीक है. See, सबसे पहले सवाल से शुरू करते हैं. Let's begin with that. Why and how did this begin?
Yes.
Right? So I have been talking about space in small pieces. So somewhere I'll talk about rockets, somewhere I'll talk about the beginning of the Big Bang, for instance, the beginning of the universe. Somewhere we'll talk about life, how it began. And then I realized that these are interconnected. Everything is interconnected. Because it's a journey of the universe, जिसमें you are just one timeline. One part of this timeline is you and I. One part of the timeline is our planet. One part of the timeline, a bigger timeline, would be our galaxy. But they are all in the same line, sections of the same line. So, इनको एक सूत्र में कैसे लाया जाए? How do we start from the beginning, as we know it now, to today, and everything which happened in between, and how everything which you look up in the sky, or you look at your palm, which is a live body, to everything around you is all interconnected. So that is the quest for this book, and we had to keep it short. क्योंकि इसको बनाना शुरू करते तो encyclopedia बन जाती.
बिल्कुल.
So the idea was not just to start writing everything, but to write things which are relevant and absorbable by somebody who's not a scientist, who's a child or who's an enthusiastic child of higher age, 30 साल के बच्चे. So होना चाहिए वो जो curious minds. How do I write it for somebody who doesn't understand science? So when you read the book, I mean, there are terms which are very scientific, but we have to go down and explain those first.
Yes.
In very, very common man language, very vyavharik. So that is a challenge, and I did not find any book which does that. There are parts, and people don't understand those parts, or those are very scientific, thick fact, 600 pages book with full of mathematical formula, which any human being who's not a space scientist would not understand. So we began with that journey. The other part which happened was that I really wanted to experiment this idea of putting a first person voice and then personifying the universe. That also simplifies it. See, it's easier to talk to you. If we were doing this on Zoom, that would have been slightly more inconvenient. If we were doing it like you send me a letter, then I send you a letter, that would have been even worse. Or you're a journalist, you write about it, that would have been the most disconnected way. We wanted to make people feel a part of the universe. And we wanted to make a universe which is not only personified, but very humble. The universe admits its own mistakes. It made mistakes. There's a lesson to it. It made mistakes, and that's why you're here. If the universe never made mistakes, we would have not existed. It made mathematical mistakes, it made physical mistakes, it made all kinds of issues. and that's the reason we exist. So as wabi sabi, as the
Yes.
Japanese saying, right?
Yes.
So there's some small errors are beautiful.
Yep.
And so we talk about that. The universe is very humble, doesn't boast around, doesn't say, I'm the Brahmand. People get so sort of proud about themselves with minor achievements, but here's universe, which is very humble.
Like the sun. I'm just
Everything
there,
is
I'm
humble.
shining.
It's
That's
my
it.
job, it's my
Yeah,
role.
yeah.
The universe says, ये मेरा दायित्व है, ये मेरा कर्तव्य है.
स्वधर्म है, बिल्कुल.
और हर एक चीज जो बनी है वो खत्म होगी. और we also talk about how the universe will end. Eventually we talk about what is the end of the universe. And then it may be reborn. So those kind of things we wanted to narrate it in a short book and make it beautiful in terms of words and visuals. And that's the reason why the book came. Now the second part of your question. Who should read it? Everybody should read it. I think it's each one of us should and has and should keep a child within us. That child is curious to know things which may not be relevant to your current professional life. Wisdom is not a victim of your employment, right?
Absolutely.
Right. It's ubiquitous. It's everything you can. It's like water. You know.
It's like space.
Yeah, space.
It's
right.
there.
So you can consume good knowledge and wisdom regardless of whether it is from the sector of your profession or
Absolutely.
not. Otherwise, we are prisoners of our own profession.
Yeah.
So anybody can read it. You will, on the other end of the book, you'll become wiser. And I want you to do one more thing. You said, what should a person do about it? Talk about it. Whatever you want to read, because this is a first-person narrative, I want you to, after reading this book, become the messenger of the universe. So the universe is your friend. You go and tell your friends about what you have learned about the universe. And there's a reason why people say knowledge should be shared, because when you share knowledge, you remember it. You don't forget it.
Yeah.
So here's what you should do. Everything which you read in this book, within one, maximum 2 days, talk about it to someone. In your friend circle, to your classmates, to your teachers, or if you're a teacher, to your students, or just random discussions which people have. And make it a part of your conversation. It'll enrich it. It'll enrich you. You will be the cool person who'll know how time began and how time moves differently and why. So those kind of things one should do. And pick out those pieces related to you. The book is very relatable. We talk about how the universe works in a kitchen. We talk about how the universe is like an artist or a tiny player, a little child also. It takes that voice. So the universe exists in many forms and many voices within the book. Find that voice which appeals you and be a part of that conversation and carry it forward, because that will be truly enriching. You will know everything. By the end of the book, you'll know everything, at least at a phenomenon, the phenomena level, you will know everything. Obviously, there's no math in the book. I didn't deliberately we ensured there's only one equation, which is equal to mc square, which everybody will understand. That's the only point at which math comes in the book. Everything is like a fiction side of a narration.
It reads like a story. It reads like a fiction
story,
book, which is very informative, and it's a fact.
Yeah.
It's something which is out there, and you are trying to distill a very complicated ecosystem down to something that people can digest.
And that's how you should talk.
Yes.
Conversation should be like this only. Yeah. Once you read the book, talk in a simple language. Try to explain to somebody who doesn't know what you've read.
Yeah.
That will enrich you. You might have to go back to the book and sort of reopen, because certain things you would have never heard of or imagined. You would have never heard okay, there's something. You open the hood of a compound, there are molecules. You open that, there are atoms. You open that, the electron, proton, neutron, and we thought this is the end of it. This is where most of education ends. But you open the hood of a proton and a neutron and you find quarks. And it's fascinating that you keep on doing that circle.
Yeah, and science is not a slave of our education system.
It's not, yeah.
It evolves. It keeps on evolving. It's our problem that we have stopped.
And it's interesting that, electron, proton, neutron, for instance, exist in triplets. So there are 3 quarks. And so sometimes the universe assumes 3 factors of math, sometimes 2. So binary, the universe is not necessarily binary. It's also a trinary, whatever you call it, triad. So it's interesting that how beautifully it is crafted.
Yeah.
And it's so simple. It's not complicated.
And I'll tell you one very positive thing about this book, which really struck me. For a very long time, Srijan, I used to go on Google. I used to type I was very fascinated by Richard Feynman.
Of course.
Because, I'll tell you why. because I had not heard the name before I started watching Big Bang Theory. The moment I started watching Big Bang Theory, I was amused of the show, but I was also fairly fascinated by this entire ecosystem of astronomy, of physicists, of theoretical physicists, everything that exists. And because of that show, it taught me a lot of names like Richard Feynman, Neil deGrasse Tyson. And when I got fascinated by these terminologies, I used to go online, Secret of Cosmos, books on the space, and all the results that I would find would be of all these Western scientists, Western leaders. As I said, Neil deGrasse Tyson. There is another person called Carlo, something, I'm forgetting his name. He's written a lot of these books. I'm like, why is there no Indian author or a series of Indian authors who are writing on these topics so that we could also understand? And that is exactly what I found in the book. The cover was beautiful. It was absolutely of the international level. And I'm like, finally somebody is trying to explain us the concept of the universe that anybody can read and understand and digest. So I think this is what is very much required. Outside people, scientists, they are writing books in a very normal way, explaining people that what is happening. There are authors who are writing on quantum physics without themselves knowing what is quantum physics. At least they're trying.
Yes.
At least they're trying to. So, Srijan, I want to also know, why is there such a lack of such books on such topics that are coming out by Indian authors in our Indian ecosystem? Where do you think? I just want to understand why our ecosystem of space exploration, of STEM, of astronomy, of all these things so restrictive. The only thing that comes into my mind when you talk about astronomy in India is ISRO. That's it. I stop there. Acha, ISRO ne Chandrayaan kar diya, bahut badhiya. My role as a citizen has been distilled down to just saying, very good yaar, we are with you.
Yep.
So I want to first understand that why kids in India are not as excited about taking up these careers or exploring, and not just be supporters of organizations which are doing good, but also trying to understand what the hell is happening. Why is this vertical not very fascinating to people and kids in India? So I just wanted to understand, what is your perspective? Because you deal with kids. This is what you are trying to do. Where do you see is the problem?
So you have to understand it also from the American journey. Right? So Americans were also very aloof of their space mission to begin with in 1950s. In 1950s, what happened was there's a fellow called Sputnik, which was launched by the Soviets. And the Soviets are very, very naughty. What they did was, whenever they would go above America, this satellite, it would do a beep, which you could hear on a radio. The Americans were so scared of Sputnik. Sputnik was nothing. It couldn't harm anybody, but they thought this is a weapon. And there was Cold War. So space as a fascination to Americans actually began as a fear of the Soviets. And the Soviets are beating them to every race. Sometimes by only a few days, but nevertheless beating them. So that's how it happened. And then, of course, the American television industry got into it. And American space missions were telecasted, including the lunar landing was telecasted. Not just Americans, but over the world. And that was very fascinating. The Americans got a gem of a person called Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
Carl Sagan was an astrophysicist, but more than that, he was a communicator of science. And he went to schools.
Communicator of science?
Science. So he was an astrophysicist. Astrophysics was his domain. However, he was also a great science communicator. And he made many shows. He wrote many books. In fact, Cosmos, the series which you mentioned.
Yes.
The first version of that is Carl Sagan's hosting.
Oh, interesting.
And then one of the students of Carl Sagan is Tyson deGrasse. And he's doing the sort of rerun of Cosmos.
Yes.
So you got this sort of a brilliant figure. And he not only did a communication work, he also did a lot of political activism around science communication. So he ensured he went to the Senate, he went to the Congress, he used to do testimonies with them, with the politicians, explaining them why science, investing in science, not just knowledge, but also interest in science today in schools will yield a generation of great scientists. And he was proven correct. And it's not just astrophysicists who came out of Carl Sagan's work in schools. Because if you're interested in science, it's far wider than just space. So you are interested in biochemics, you are interested in DNA, you are interested in how to cure cancer, you are interested in nanorobots, you are interested in everything which is around this. Because your your focus shifts from whatever else you were doing towards everything which is scientific, futuristic, and you get a lot of hope. Because science is about hope.
Absolutely.
It's about impossible things. And it's also about humility, to know that there are limitations which you have to eventually break. So it's a beautiful journey of not just space, but many other things. And not just many other things, but also ethics and values. So that is what Carl Sagan provided the Americans in many ways. I think, Americans were also ready back then. They were they were the most developed country economically. And they were ready on the cusp of trying these new things. In 1970s and 80s, India perhaps was not ready. Not even in 90s. We were still a country which was fledgling. We were struggling with basic employment. We were struggling with finding basic livelihood. It was the challenge we had. Today, India is different. Today, India is ready for trying extraordinary things. It's ready to think beyond Roti Kapla Makan. It can think about Chandrayaan. है ना? रोटी कपड़ा मकान से चंद्रयान पे आ गया, मंगलयान, चंद्रयान, शुक्रयान पे आ गया. So we are talking about these impossible dreams which we could have never fathomed 10 years, 20 years ago, definitely. So that's what's happening. Now, I think today if I look at children, they are very, very excited to experiment new things, not just in space, but I teach every kind of thing, not space is just one part of it. It's a good way to communicate because it's fascinating, but I could teach you mathematics through space. I could teach you basic physics through space. I could teach you biology through space. So, for example, when we talk about, I teach agriculture. One of those topics I teach children is agriculture. Very boring. How do I teach it? Let's do farming on Mars, right? So now Mars ki mitti uthao. Oh, it's rusty. It's like rusty. What do you do with it? How do I convert this to something which is, something in which you can grow a crop? What it takes. The sun is less than half of what you get. So the sunlight has changed. Now what do you do? And so on and so forth. So in that context, you teach geography and agriculture through Mars and it becomes exciting.
Absolutely.
So I think we are at that cusp. Now we can do this. The other thing we need, I think, just one person can't change anything. We need to promote our best minds to go into teaching. Then only they can.
We need them to go into
Teaching, yeah. So that's true, right? If you look at,
absolutely,
if you go to, I teach, and this is hard to admit, but that's the truth, is that you ask, say 1,000 children are sitting anywhere. So I've been to like village kids. 1,000 बच्चे वो पटना में बैठे थे. हजारों बच्चे जो है यहाँ बैठे हैं किसी बड़े शहर में, छोटे शहर में, गांव के शहर में, कहीं भी आप जाओ. And I do approximately 5 to 10 events of this kind in a month. So there is 5-10 हज़ार बच्चे I'm meeting live on a monthly basis. Right? So 50,000 बच्चे साल के. And I ask them, every time I ask them, what do you want to become? I give them options. Do you want to become IAS officer, IPS officer? बहुत other class हाथ उठा देगा. Everybody wants to be that. I ask them, do you want to become researchers or engineers? 1/3 will go up. Doctors, 1/4 will go up. And then you ask them, do you want to become teachers? They start laughing. They actually laugh. And the same they laugh when you say political leader. फिर उसमें political leader में एक आध होंगे वो बहुत ही highly motivated, वो उसको तो speech ही देना है उसके बाद.
Must be very heartbreaking, right?
It's very heartbreaking to see
हंस रहे हैं.
Teachers नहीं बनना चाहते बच्चे और एक दूसरे को देखने लगते हैं. तो political leader भी मिल जाएंगे 5-10 आपको, लेकिन टीचर के लिए एक बच्चा हाथ नहीं उठाता. क्यों ऐसा हो रहा है कि our best minds are not deciding to become teachers. जो बच्चे हैं वही तो है ना फ्यूचर हमारे. Why do children not see teaching as a viable, good career?
Yeah. Rewarding and
यही
empowering.
चीज, same experiment, you do anywhere in Europe. आप स्पेशली नॉर्दर्न यूरोप में करो, स्कैंडिनेवियन, डेनमार्क से लेके फिनलैंड तक आप करो ये, आपको 80% बच्चे टीचर पे हाथ उठा देंगे. क्यों उठा देते हैं हाथ? दे सी इट एज अ रिवॉर्डिंग करियर. प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि इट्स नॉट जस्ट दैट टीचर्स को हमने बांध दिया है. ये सिलेबस है, ये बोर्ड है, इतना अपडेट देना है, सुबह का शाम का अटेंडेंस देना है, ये वर्कशॉप अटेंड करनी है तो करनी है, चाहे आपको आता हो दोबारा अटेंड करो, डजेंट मैटर, आपको अटेंडेंस लगानी है. और फिर अगर आप सरकारी स्कूल के टीचर हो, आप खाली हो, चलो गिनती करो बच्चों की. कितने लोग हैं जनसंख्या, उनकी गिनती करो, और ये वोटिंग में ड्यूटी लगा दो, इनकी इधर ड्यूटी लगा दो, भीड़ बनानी है तो बच्चों को बुला लो. दैट्स द काइंड ऑफ थिंग वी डू.
Yes.
What is the motivation of a teacher? I think the role of the education secretary, and may I say even higher up, the whole education setup right from the ministry to the bottom should be teachers. School administration is a specialized job. We need specialized people. So what does a teacher aspire to become? Principal बन जाएगा. फिर क्या बनेगा? तो your promotion is only 2 levels, teacher, vice principal, principal. उसके बाद क्या करोगे? So there is no aspiration left in it, and that's why students don't want. And and we need to give social recognition. It's not about money. I don't think government school teachers are not underpaid, but they are undervalued. So we need to change that, and we have to give them freedom. Or we have to give them. If I'm a better teacher, I should get a faster rise. There should be an incentive on meritocracy. It's not based on meritocracy. It is entirely based on seniority. It is not, so I don't get anything if my students are doing amazingly well. I don't get anything. And my only पैमाना कि मेरे बच्चे अच्छा कर रहे हैं is based on बोर्ड के स्कोर कितने आए. वो तो नहीं है ना, मैंने नीचे से उठा करके किस बच्चे को ऊपर तक लेके गया, वो इम्पोर्टेंट है, डेल्टा इम्पोर्टेंट है ना.
But how can we then change this narrative? How can we change the story that being teacher can also be great? How can we romanticize it more?
Who's the most famous
IAS
teacher?
and IFS are romanticized.
Okay, tell me who's the most famous teacher of this country? Who's alive? Not a name comes to your mind.
बिल्कुल भी नहीं. मेरे दिमाग में अब्दुल कलाम ही आ रहे थे.
No, I said that's why I validated.
ना, तो
alive.
मैंने I didn't say that.
You don't know a single teacher of this country who is alive, right?
That's very sad. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's very sad.
Tell me the greatest politician who's alive. You'll have a name. I'll not ask it because that creates controversy. Greatest sportsman who's alive. You'll may say Tendulkar, Kohli, whatever you want to say. Some other sports you'll say. Every single thing you'll have a name. But when I ask you a teacher, you don't have a name.
Yeah. Even for a Gunda, I have a name. But for a teacher, there is no name.
And now tell me who is the most significant teacher in your life. You'll know that. But that significant teacher is not an important figure in this country. Why? We all have our favorite teacher. Ask people. I'll ask, your people should comment. Tell me the most famous alive teacher in this country. And teacher होना चाहिए. आप वो बहुत बड़ा प्रोफेसर मत बताना मेरे को. आप टीचर नहीं है. So if we are not going to make heroes out of our teachers, who will want to be teachers? अगर वो बच्चा ये देखेगा कि किसी टीचर की प्रतिमा ही नहीं लगती, कम से कम मेरी लाइफ टाइम वाली को तो नहीं लगती, मतलब मुझे नहीं पता कोई जो हैं वो बहुत ही पुराने एकाध हैं, बस उन्हीं पे चल रहा है.
बस that's it.
हाँ नहीं, so Ambedkar was not really a teacher.
हाँ, he was not teacher.
He's a scholar.
Per se, yeah.
He's a scholar. He's the best scholar India had, but he was not a teacher. Right? So teachers नहीं है हमारे अच्छे, है ना? और टीचर नहीं देश बनाया. हम बोलते हैं टीचर दुनिया बनाते हैं, टीचर देश बनाते हैं, टीचर यंग माइंड बनाते हैं, लेकिन एक नाम नहीं याद आता हमें टीचर का. क्यों? सिस्टमिक फेलियर है. इस साल का बेस्ट टीचर अवार्ड किसको मिला? किसी को नहीं पता. कोई सी अखबार में नहीं आता. हर साल होता है, किसी अखबार में नहीं आता बेस्ट टीचर अवार्ड.
No idea कि there is an award.
There's a राष्ट्रीय अवार्ड, there's a national prize for teachers. We do. So इसी वजह से we at Kalam Centre we do our own award for teachers and we call teachers from all over. We try to celebrate them. But सिर्फ मेरे करने से तो नहीं होगा ना. It has to be a national mission.
Yeah.
Where is the national mission for teachers?
I think they were not prioritized. They never even prioritized.
Never. हाँ.
है ना? They were never
तो
prioritized as a profession.
आप जो है we do events on गाता कौन अच्छा है, बिल्कुल करना चाहिए. Singing is great. You have television shows. You have television shows कौन नाचता अच्छा है. You have television shows कि कौन शेफ अच्छा है ना? आप हर चीज़ में television show है आपका. आप you have television shows कि सबसे ज़्यादा टाइम पास अच्छा कौन करता है, वो उसका भी आपने एक with a very big name in Bollywood industry, you have a show which everybody watches कि लोग क्या कर रहे हैं. But you don't have a television show dedicated to teachers.
No, we don't.
So where is that? Where is Teachers Tank? Shark Tank की तरह Teachers Tank होना चाहिए.
There's a drought in this ecosystem like anything.
तो फिर अगर टीचर नहीं अच्छा बनेगा तो फिर जो आपके सवाल का जवाब है कि क्यों हमारे यहाँ एग्जेम्पलरी चीज़ें सिखाने और सीखने की क्षमता नहीं है, वो इसलिए नहीं है क्योंकि उन क्षमता वाले काबिल लोगों को आप शिक्षक बनने के लिए प्रेरित नहीं करते. सिस्टम नहीं है. तो सिस्टमिक फ्लॉ है, वो चेंज करना आवश्यक है.
No, absolutely right. I mean, I think this question will stay with me for a very long time. That name me one good teacher. I'm still thinking about decision. नहीं आ रहा है कुछ भी दिमाग में. And it's a very sorry state. And if this is the sorry state, then imagine बच्चों को क्या होगा? क्या होगा? कुछ भी नहीं होगा. And they'll seek the same thing outside universities, and that's what they have been doing. They've been going for better infra and for great teachers only.
I know somebody who studied with me in IIM Ahmedabad, and she chose to become a Japanese teacher, but in Japan. नॉट इन इंडिया. शी वांटेड टू बी अ टीचर. टीचर बन गई, लेकिन इंडिया में नहीं बनी. वी लॉस्ट her, राइट? द बेस्ट माइंड अगर IIM अहमदाबाद में जाते हैं और टीचर बनने को चूज़ करती है, वो इंडिया में नहीं चूज़ करेगी. क्यों नहीं करेगी? टीचिंग उसका पैशन था, एंड शी रियलाइज her पैशन, बट शी डिडंट चूज इंडिया.
And this is a horror story.
Yeah.
This is
और दिस इज अ वेकअप कॉल. लेट्स डू दैट कि हम लोग अच्छे माइंड्स को टीचर्स तक लेके जाएं. और ये प्राइवेट सेक्टर नहीं करेगा, ये गवर्नमेंट को करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट के पास रिसोर्सेज हैं. आप जितनी बार एक बिल पे करते हो या टैक्स देते हो तो 2% एजुकेशन सेस चार्ज देते हो. उसका क्या होगा? है ना, उसका हमें कुछ करना चाहिए ना. और ये कोई बहुत महंगा नहीं है. आप 10 लोगों को हीरो बना दो, उसके बाद देखो 10,000 हीरो बनने के तैयार हो जाएंगे. मैं चाहता हूँ वो दिन जब बच्चे बोलेंगे कि आधे बच्चे बोले मेरे को टीचर ही बनना है. जब इस देश में टीचर के लिए ऐसी लाइन लगे जैसे सिविल सर्विसेज के लिए लगती है कि यूपीएससी को कराना पड़े टीचर का एग्जाम, और एक पे 100 लोग अप्लाई करें. दैट वुड बी एन आइडियल नेशन. अ नेशन बिकम्स दैट व्हाट इट हीरोज चूज टू बी.
Beautiful.
If your heroes are going to be, and I have no problem in, say bureaucrats being heroes, that's what your nation wants to aspire to be. That's great. You'll have a good administrative country. But if that's all what your heroes are, then फिर तो गड़बड़ है ना. फिर आपके टीचर्स हीरो नहीं है तो फिर आप नहीं बन पाओगे. फिनलैंड क्यों नंबर 1 एजुकेशन में है? इसलिए बिकॉज दैट्स द हीरो. आप भेजते रहो दिल्ली से गवर्नमेंट और दुनिया भर की गवर्नमेंट फिनलैंड भेज करके ट्रेनिंग में भेजती है. क्या कुछ नहीं ट्रेन हो रहा? कोई ट्रेनिंग नहीं दे सकते. आपको ट्रेनिंग की आवश्यकता ही नहीं है. हमारा टीचर बहुत अच्छा है, लेकिन उसको रिकग्निशन तो दो टीचिंग करने की.
So they are being treated in Finland and countries like that as celebrities, as actual celebrities.
And the lower you go, the bigger celebrity it is. So primary school का teacher is considered to be, it's more complicated. Because जिस बच्चे को शब्द भी नहीं आते हैं पूरे, मुझे उसे सिखाना है, versus एक कॉलेज का प्रोफेसर जिसको आधी 90% चीज़ तो उस बच्चे को ऑलरेडी आती है. आपको सिर्फ तराशना है, उसको मिट्टी लेकर के मूर्ति का रूप देना है, जिस टीचर का काम है. हमारे यहाँ उल्टा है. हमारे यहाँ किसी प्राइवेट स्कूल में आप पूछ लीजिए, प्राइमरी स्कूल टीचर इज पेड लीस्ट एंड देन सैलरी कीप्स गोइंग अप. तो व्हाट आई वी सेइंग कि छोटे बच्चे पे मेहनत कम लगती है, या
फाउंडेशन बनाना होता है उस पे मेहनत कम लगती है.
फिर फाउंडेशन आपने डीमोटिवेटेड हाथ से बनवाई, और फिर आप सोच रहे हो कि जब ये टेढ़ी मेढ़ी मूर्ति आएगी तो उसको तराशने वालों को मैं ज़्यादा पैसे दे दूंगा और बेहतर काम करा लूँगा. सो दिस होल आइडियोलॉजी हैज़ टू चेंज. माइंडसेट की प्रॉब्लम है. सिंपल चीज़ पढ़ाना, सिंपल लैंग्वेज में चीज़ों को पढ़ाना is far more complicated than complex language में चीज़ों को बताना.
Teachers should have been at the same position as the doctors in India, but sadly we
डॉक्टर्स की तो अपने अब दूसरी प्रॉब्लम है. डॉक्टर्स को वी आर पुटिंग सोसाइटल थिंग्स, बट अगर आप उनसे 24 घंटे काम कराओगे, भाई कौन काम करेगा 24 घंटे? फिर उनसे गलती हो जाएगी तो कहोगे कि मेडिकल नेग्लिजेंस हो गया.
At least kids are still aspiring to be doctors, but teachers too.
डॉक्टर्स चलो एस्पायर कर रहे हैं, बिकॉज कहीं तो आप उनको, इफ आई आस्क यू भाई नेशन का फेमस डॉक्टर कौन है, तो आप बोल दोगे मे बी अपना नरेश त्रिहन जी का नाम ले लोगे.
सर्जन्स नाम आ जाएंगे,
आपको नाम आ जाएंगे, तो नाम है आपके, तो एटलीस्ट देयर सम हीरो. हाँ, कोई तो है, बट टीचर्स का तो कोई नहीं.
No, you are absolutely right, and this is something, as I said, it will go in my head. Srijan, now couple of things in the book that I really want you to explain on, because these are amazing topics and subjects. Okay, so this is an highlight that I have taken from the book, and then I'll follow it up with the question. Highlight is this: we exist in just 3 dimensions, while the universe may have hidden dimensions, perhaps inaccessible to us forever. What is this 3 dimension, and what could be these potential dimensions? So I really want to understand. So let's demystify the term dimension, the current 3 dimensions, and what more dimensions could be there, which are hidden that we are not able to comprehend, right? It's so fascinating.
Correct.
So please.
So imagine a point. A point has no dimension. ना उसमें लेंथ है, ना ब्रेथ है, ना हाइट है.
It just exists.
It is there, but it's still there.
It's there.
It's there without dimensions. So you can exist without existing in any dimension. Energy exists.
Yes.
But it doesn't have dimensions.
No, it doesn't have.
Right?
Yeah.
So universe began with no dimensions. It had energy on a point. And a point is as small as you can imagine, because it's nothing. Imagine a line. A line will exist in one dimension, say length, say breadth. It can also exist in height. Imagine a square, 2 dimension. Imagine a cube or a sphere or whatever else you want. That exists in 3 dimensions. Imagine your hand. Exists in length, has a width, has a breadth. 3 dimensions. Imagine this sofa, 3 dimensions. Imagine this planet Earth, that's also 3 dimensions. Imagine the sun, as we see it, 3 dimensions. So everything which exists around you is 3-dimensional. No, that's not true. Everything which, so see, that's a trap. We think everything exists in 3 dimensions because we see in 3 dimensions. We perceive in 3 dimensions.
So you're saying with relative to us, from our perspective, it is 3 dimensions.
Everything from your perspective exists in 3 dimensions because you are blind to every other dimension. Right? Now imagine an ant which is walking on a flat piece of paper, a very large piece of paper, but flat. The ant cannot see. It's a blind ant. And it's walking. So it can walk only length or in breadth. But if this ant is walking length and breadth, but it is designated to go here, it can work here. But this point, which is at 6 inches of height, is infinitely far away. Because keep walking here, but it'll never reach here. So the ant is a prisoner of 2 dimensions.
2 dimensions.
A blind ant. You are a prisoner of 3 dimensions. For the ant, the 3rd dimension which you can see and walk and behave in is practically, it's like teleportation. Now imagine, and the ant, you can't tell this ant that there is a 3rd dimension which you can fly in, which it can't because it has never seen it. It anyways is not seeing anything, but it has never perceived it. Its perception is locked and caged. So in the same way, you are locked in 3 dimension. Now the question is that if there are things from a point to a line to an ant to you where dimensions are getting added, what is the guarantee that there is not another dimension to what you know? So what if there's a 4th dimension?
So you're saying what is the guarantee of our not knowing how many things are
What is the guarantee that your knowledge is exhaustive?
Yeah, it's exhaustive.
Because you cannot perceive in that 4th dimension, in the 5th dimension, the 6th dimension. So now the question is, how do we find out something which I cannot perceive? And that is the beauty of science and more a beauty of math. Why people ask me why math is boring, but math is not boring. Math helps you imagine things which you cannot perceive. Science helps you imagine and understand things which later you can perceive at some point. Math is very beautiful. That's why I love mathematics, and people should love mathematics, but mathematics is taught in a way which is very boring. That's a different question. But let's use the other parameters of the universe to find out, are there hidden dimensions which you don't know? You can't see them, you can't perceive them. You probably will never be able to do that in our physical body. So the addendum to that section which you asked is that as long as you are caged in a carbon body, which is us, you will not be able to perceive the 4th dimension. But is there a 4th dimension? That question is important. So scientists have been grappling with this for a very long time now. And they have talked about something which is called a 4D cube.
A 4D?
A 4D cube. A cube which has length, breadth, height and a 4th dimension. This is called tesseract. Now movies have picked tesseract, Avengers.
As a concept,
Yeah, Avengers and Loki hunting behind tesseract, infinite energy, because it's a portal, and which may actually be true. Then they talk about 5D, which is where that Cooper guy in Interstellar, he's trapped in a 5-dimensional space.
And that is the end scene, right?
That's how he talks. Yes, so that's why he jumps time and space. And then talks to his young daughter by dropping those books or something. He does. I don't remember exactly.
So that is in the 5th dimension.
That's a 5D space, right? That's a 5D space. They've imagined it. Obviously, you can't show it.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a movie, you can't even show 3D, let alone 4D.
You don't know how it looks like.
I don't know. I mean, does it look at all? Is there a look to it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Looking is also 3-dimensional. Vision is 3-dimensional for us. That too is a fake 3-dimension because your eyes have a crossing path. So your mind sort of reconstructs a 2D image into a 3D object. Close one eye and try to do this, you can't do this because your 3D is gone. So if you have only one eye, your 3D will be hindered. So basically you are talking about the fact that we are victims of our own bodily capabilities, of our own sensory perception. With those 5 senses which we know of so far in our body, we can only go 3D. We can't go 4D. We can't go 5D. But is there more dimension? Can I use math to talk about more dimensions? So there is a theory called the string theory. And not to get into the details of that, but imagine the string theory says, imagine a rubber band. And imagine that you can stretch it, you can vibrate it, you can twist it, you can vibrate it, and so on, and it will have some vibrations. String theory, in a nutshell, I'm very simplifying, it has to be simplified, says that everything which exists in the universe is just consistent and same strings with different vibrations. Right? Now then, so this is one of the pioneering theories of physics, which is, it's a theory, it's not a law. So we have no proof for it.
Yeah.
Then there is the other big quest, which is that the universe needs to have a unification equation. There has to be a single equation which connects everything. There are 4 fundamental forces and there are particles. There's energy. We know energy and mass relation is equal to mc square.
Yep.
But nothing relates forces and mass and different forces into one.
Yeah.
And that entire unifying equation has been what Einstein spent his last 2 decades of his life, or at least 1.5 decades, and could never solve it. And we have not been able to solve ever since. We don't know that equation, but we have some clues about it. There are certain inconsistencies which keep propping. So your formula is not balanced if you talk only in 3 dimension. Clearly, it doesn't balance. There are a lot of anomalies. If you do 4 dimension, some anomalies go away. The equation starts to make a little more sense, and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. We still don't have the formula. But what we find is that to eliminate the anomalies of the unified equation, which connects force, matter, energy into one. So a single equation of the universe, you would at least need 10 to 11 dimensions. So basically you're talking about 1 dimension is time, so 3 dimensions plus time, and then 9 or 10 total dimensions plus time. So you don't know at least 6, potentially 7 dimensions, which you have no clue of.
But then how will we be able to solve this equation of that unified
Math.
But then for that we'll need to understand those dimensions, right? That we don't still have the understanding of.
Math will help you
What
understand.
is the probability that we'll ever be able to get to know these dimensions? Even the probability, it's very strange, right?
I would keep it 100%. It's only a matter of time. That's why we need to have that faith. See, we can't have that faith that we can't do it. Because, see, I understand one thing. We have very fascinating species.
Yes.
In 2000 years, if you count Takshila as the seat of science to begin with, or you want to go even further, we can go to Mahabharata era and so on. At the maximum stretch, we know science, the beginning of it, only for about 5 to 7,000 years. Institutional universities exist only about 2,500 years. So it's really very early days for human civilization. A civilization which covered 20 lakh years, 2 million years, 2, 3, 4,000 years is not even, it's not even 1%.
Yeah, it's not even comparable.
0.1% of your time. So you have to be slightly kinder to human species, which for 99.9% of its time were either primitive farmers or mostly hunter-gatherers. And that civilization learned to write the basic akshar only for the last 10% of its existence. It learned fire only 15% of its time. We didn't know anything. And it's very early days. We still rely on dead plants and animals for fueling our cars. We only about 12 or so people have gone to our nearest neighbor, which is not even a planet, which is our own moon. So it's a very early civilization in that sense. And I think we should be able to, we should have those high dreams of cracking the unification equation. My only worry is the moment you crack all these equations, you should be able to do time travel. And if you are able to travel through time, where are the travelers from the future? Either they have passed a law in the future saying that we will not go back in time, or even if we go back, we will not tell them. So they are amongst us and we don't know them. Or we have not been able to crack time travel at all. And that is not a good thing.
So you're saying that we'll be able to travel back in time because we'll be able to understand the space-time continuum? Is that the reason that we'll be able to understand how these elements are working and maybe use it to our own advantage in terms of using it or even exploiting it the way we want it? I don't know if time travel is exploitation or...
A species which learns how to travel time will not exploit. It would have ethically been and morally had become wiser to be able to crack these things.
So isme over here can consciousness come in
it will. Science without ethics is destructive. It's self-destruction. You split an atom and you bomb 2 cities, that's destructive. So science without any ethical boundaries is very, very destructive. And I think any species which, whether it's us or some other alien species, which gathers enough science to do teleportation and time travel, would have strong moral foundation to not use it to destroy others. It would not need to. The universe is too big for us. For any living species, it's way too big. There's enough ample energy. Our ignorance is because we are too new. But that doesn't mean the universe is not full of energy. We think that, all the coal will run out, all the petroleum will run out. These are dead plants and animals. Basically, these are dead bodies and things coming out of those dead bodies which we use as fuel. Now that will run out, who cares? Any species which is truly advanced would be able to extract energy from fusion. A hydrogen atom itself can give you, which is abundant. The most abundant thing is hydrogen. And that fellow can give you energy. There are theories which now talk about energy from 0 point, which is vacuum itself might be energy. There is 70% of the universe which we call as dark energy. We don't even know what it is. So we are nowhere yet. But I have hopes that we will go ahead in time. And traveling back in time and all that is not the most complex thing if you have enough energy. We have something called black holes, which we all have heard of. And the book also talks about it. And there is a theory which even Einstein had proposed. It's called the Einstein-Rosenthal bridge, which in colloquial language in cinema we call wormholes, by which it's said that if you connect two black holes, there's one black hole, and they're connected in space and time.
It can be
like a portal in space-time. Now, black holes, these are talking about naturally occurring black holes. What if we are able to open a black hole? And you can just open a black hole, step into it, and then go somewhere else in space and time. And to do this, to open a ripped space, you have to rip the space fabric. By opening a black hole, what you need energy. So if you get enough energy, you can potentially, and again, very theoretical and probably over-optimistic, is that you can use, if you have enough energy, you can rip open space-time, you can rip the fabric of space, you can open an Einstein-Rosenthal bridge, go to the other part of the universe in space and time, and then potentially come back. So in future, just like our aircraft takes off by running really fast and then lifting off and then lands and then takes off again and comes back. In future, or maybe a species is doing it, where it can just open black holes, go to other places in time, and then open again and go back. So this, theoretically it's possible. There are obviously nuances to it, and there are huge safety issues.
And I think humanity is discovering a lot of resources as we keep on progressing. We are discovering new things that we haven't discovered before, right? So there's always the possibility. The probability is always in a favor, actually.
It's a very, so there are two sides to the question. And I would leave that as a question rather than a conjecture. Is this the ultimate form of us? Is our species going to be homo sapiens? So is this form of body, mind, life form, structurally, the way we think, the way we store information, retrieve it, our senses, the 5 senses we have, our carbon-based body, calcium bones covered in skin and tissue, is this the end goal? Because if you look at our own history, we had different species. We had Neanderthals who were different from us. We had Homo erectus, Denisovans. They're all different from us. And we have evolved. And in many cases, we have evolved by elimination and not coexistence. So even you and I will have about 3 to 4% Neanderthal DNA in us. But the Neanderthals don't exist. We are Homo sapiens. Is Homo sapiens the end? Or is there something else which will happen?
No, I want to know your personal opinion on this thing, because I have an opinion on this thing. What's your take on this thing? What do you think? Are we the end? Is the Homo species the end, or we'll have something more?
I don't think this is the last existence of our life form. It's unstable otherwise. Because then there will be barriers which we will hit. So for example, there was a species of us which had a tail, which had bodily hair, which could not really stand on 2 legs. That species had to be metamorphosized and eliminated into what we are. And there's many others which happen in between them. Every time you had to build a new capability, you had to give up certain things and focus on something else, and also eliminate those who had that capability, so that your evolution happens with the new capability alone.
Absolutely.
Right? So the humans with tails and body hair do not exist at all because we eliminated them. Now, not necessarily by murder, but by evolving them out.
Yes.
So they devolved out. So if that is the case, and every now and then we have to evolve into a better species of ourselves with focus on something a skill which we need, and eliminating things which we don't need, I don't think evolution will stop.
Yeah.
And my biggest, I won't say fear, but one of the conjectures, and it also worries me a little bit, because the rate at which is happening is very fast, is we started with AI. Your first question was AI. What is starting to happen is that there's a lot of I don't know.
Yeah.
What I don't know about AI. So initially, what your father had is I don't know.
Yeah.
So I know what I don't know. So he knows there's AI.
Yeah. He knows
He doesn't know it.
Yeah.
But I know what I don't know. That's ignorance. And that can be sorted.
Yeah.
What if I don't know what I don't know?
Yeah, that's more scary.
So
I even don't know what I don't know.
You
yet.
don't know how big it is.
Yeah.
You don't know how, is it 1%? Is it 99%? Yeah. So we don't know a lot of things about what we don't know about AI. And nobody knows. So not even the programmer knows. And what is starting to happen, and I'm sort of digressing from the topic a little bit, is that there are signs where artificial intelligence is acting on its own and manipulating humans.
Is it what they call it being sentient?
So, that particular Google scientist you're talking about is the example. Let's use it.
Yeah.
Here's a scientist. Google ने बहुत पैसा पाता होगा वो, है ना? अच्छा होता है. Google is like जैसे इंडिया में IAS बनता है वैसे वहाँ लोग Google में काम करते हैं. इसीलिए US में बड़ी इंडस्ट्री में काम करना is big, you know.
And they have all the data in the world.
That's this guy who's a senior scientist and engineer at Google who's inventing an AI, this, is somehow convinced that this AI is alive.
And refuses to kill it, to delete it. And उसके दिमाग में उसको ये लगने लगा है, he starts thinking कि if I delete it, it's akin to murder.
Who made him think this?
The AI manipulated him into thinking that
I am alive. Don't delete him as. So there's a survival instinct which came into an artificial intelligence. And more than that, he was able to learn to manipulate human emotions.
so that it could suffice its purpose of survival. Now that's
Scary.
Are we creating? Yeah, one way you look at it, it's scary. And definitely, as a species, which is the dominant species of this planet, it is scary. But it's also quite exciting that now we have built something which is not built of biology, but is showing signs
that it wants to survive.
that is very big action.
And this is like a birth of a new species completely.
Correct.
Right? In a way.
But that's how it has always happened.
When,
No, but we have always been evolved from one thing or the other. Over here, you have something that is grown from ground zero as a new species.
Yeah, but that's the difference. But I have a point for you to consider then. We have evolved. What you say evolution is, you say it evolution because it's within your carbon-based body.
Yes.
So even if you were adding, so there was a version of us which did not have that walnut jaisa portion in your brain, those cerebral cortex, right? The cerebral cortex happened over time. It's a physical feature which you can't see, but it exists, which helps you think and remember better than your forefathers could.
Yeah.
So there was a physiological evolution using the same material which you had. So nothing new happened. AI is almost giving birth not through your body, not through your physical body, but through your consciousness. So now what was your molecules were producing, your brain and everything else, now your electronic process, your brain also has electromagnetics, right? That's how the brain works. That electromagnetic process is giving birth. So far you've been giving birth and evolution through the fermions, which is electron, proton, neutron in your body. Now you're giving birth to an AI which is coming out of your electromagnetics.
So this, the way you're saying it, I don't know why it reminds me of this story of Brahma's Manas Putras. Daksh Prajapati was a Manas Putra of Brahma.
Correct.
Not created by the normal ways humans were created, but by his mind.
By mind, yeah.
Fascinating. So that means these things have existed somewhere. As concepts, ki Manas Putra hota tha.
Even if they didn't exist, and we don't know whether they exist in real life or not, and I will not get into that dispute because that's a discussion which is different. But that is for sure, whether you believe in this part or not, but you have to believe in the part that we could imagine this.
Yeah.
We could imagine that you can create things out of electromagnetism, which is your thoughts. AI is a child, child is a very strong word, is an offspring which has come out of our thoughts and electromagnetism. which is now showing signs of being alive, or at least trying to be alive.
Yeah. And I also feel that in a way, what consciousness has now gotten one more instrument to use, which is the AI. Now it can also function over there, maybe in a better way, than it has been able to work on the humans, maybe in a faster way than the humans.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is that in universe, biology is quite ruthless.
Yes.
So if something better comes out of you, biology does not have a constitution which says it can't destroy you. It can very easily replace you. That's how biology works.
Absolutely.
So if we are going to move towards something which I called homo-sapiens, which may be a hybrid of human and machine, where your thoughts will cognitively be linked to a machine, I would not be surprised if that happens in 100 years or so.
Is Neuralink a step in that direction?
Neuralink is a step, and
a conscious step. Is it a conscious step?
I cannot say that. I mean, I'm not. Nobody knows. So I mean, only Musk would know. But I would not be surprised if something like Neuralink is able to. So there are two ways. There are three challenges. Third one is very big, so I don't want to get into that one. But when you talk about a human-machine interface, where humans become homo-machinists, what will happen is you have to first convert your memories into human. Now that's doable. That's the easiest of the two. Second is your emotions. Again, that's doable, and controversially I'm saying it because emotions are nothing but reflex responses. So there are certain things to which you respond based on your experiences, which are memory, or your intuition, which is by birth, which may be genetic, which I can still read and I can program. Slightly more complicated than memories. Third one is difficult. The third one is sentient.
Yeah.
In machine you call it a sentient machine.
Yes.
In human we call it consciousness. This is chetna. So consciousness और sentience के बीच का जो gap है, इसको मैं कैसे खत्म करूँ? If I'm able to do that, the machine. So this is called. There's a self-awareness test. So
Turing.
हाँ, so Turing test तो वो captcha वाला है. वो तो machine और humans apart वाला है.
हाँ, that's capture.
Right, that's capture. But we're talking about a self-awareness test. Very few species we believe are self-aware. So do I know it's self-aware or not? For example, a honeybee might actually be aware of its colony, but not aware of itself. Again, we don't know, but that's how a lot of people believe in it. Humans are definitely self-aware. Self-awareness does not come at birth. It takes a little bit time to learn that. And for certain animals like chimpanzee, it takes more time. But it can be trained into being self-aware. You put a mirror in front of it and see its reaction. So that's the mirror test which is done. Not every species is able to do that. So does it mean if consciousness is self-awareness, then do species on our own planet are devoid of consciousness? And then consciousness cannot be the building block of life, because there are people alive without consciousness.
Or maybe they are operating at a consciousness which is very low, which does not make them. So I'll tell you what you are saying is I 100% believe. If you are saying that there could be a next species, I absolutely believe, and I'll tell you where my belief is based on. So there's this Indian philosopher called Sri Aurobindo. He has this philosophy called integral yoga. So in the integral yoga, he has defined consciousness as a faculty. Consciousness is that faculty that makes you aware of your higher self. That makes you aware of your highest self. आप अभी कहीं पर भी हो, that's irrelevant. It makes you aware. And that consciousness is the thing that can bring out whatever it needs to bring out from your body for it to evolve. If that consciousness thinks that more better things need to be taken out from the human body, it will. If the consciousness thinks that certain organs are now not useful or in the future would not be useful, it will eliminate. And even he suggesting that there is a species that will come up that will be beyond the homo sapiens, because we are not the final form. We are not the final word and we are not perfect. So for him, consciousness was the main thing that will bring out the evolution.
So then the question now remains, the third factor. We've talked about memories, we talked about emotions, and the third factor is whether this is consciousness, whether it is self-awareness, whether it is sentience, we don't know. Whether it is sheer survival instinct, it is as simple as that, we don't know. So we really don't know, but there's something hidden in our DNA which we have not been able to decode.
Absolutely.
And the DNA is immense. Every single cell of yours has 2 meters of DNA, which the universe made,
Yes.
right? And if you add up all the cells, that's how much? About 60 trillion meters or 60 billion kilometers of DNA. It's enough for you to go to the sun and come back about 250 times.
Interesting.
That amount of data is there in your body. What is it used for?
Yeah.
Is it consciousness? Is that what I need to copy? Now, if I have to copy and I know the challenge, I'll do it. Eventually, I will. But the problem is I don't know what I don't know. And that is where the problem is, which we have to grapple.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much time it will take. Maybe artificial intelligence itself will be able to solve this for us. And then I think it will not be artificial anymore. It will be alien intelligence.
Yeah.
But
And it will just be intelligence. Intelligence.
yeah, it will be intelligence.
Just
It will be
intelligence.
you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for the Homo erectus, the Homo-sapiens would have been artificial intelligence. They would have, these guys are walking and like so straight. They don't have a tail. You know, they really remember stuff, and they can make fiction. We can't do that. It's alien. It's artificial. So artificial is only from your manifestation, from your vantage point. There's nothing artificial. AI आपस में अगर बात करती हो कहते हो कि ये लोग artificial है.
Absolutely.
So everybody is artificial to the vantage point of the
Yes.
other.
Yes.
So there's nothing artificial about it. But will it be able to replace or be our next evolutionary step is something which we don't know of. But in many sectors, and the rate at progress at which it is going,
It's just mind-boggling.
seems like mind-boggling.
There were a couple of things which I wanted to ask you more. Please explain, and again basics, because हम बहुत loosely in terms को भी use कर लेते हैं as a normal citizen and people, we don't know. So I want you to explain what is the Big Bang Theory. I, in a way, know that there was a bang, there was a Big Bang and the cosmos was born. So I want you to explain the Big Bang Theory. Where did this theory come from? And till date, is it valid or not, or has it been disproved or not? I don't know if it stands till date as a viable explanation for the birth of the universe.
So the Big Bang Theory is out of the many theories of how the universe came into existence. That seems to be the most widely accepted theory. Now, it's a theory by design doesn't mean, it means that it's not proven. So it's a theory. Evolution is also a theory. So how did the universe came into being? So one prominent is Big Bang. Why is it called Big Bang? Nothing that it was big, but what it made was big because universe to wahin se aaya. And bang because I'll tell you why. So what the Big Bang Theory says is that at the very beginning, and we don't know when the beginning is, and since when, kab tak chala wo bhi nahi pata, there was energy. Now, and this fellow energy can translate into mass, is equal to mc square. So energy banta tha mass, matter, antimatter. एंटी-मैटर और मैटर अगर मिल जाएं तो धमाका हो जाता है. इज इक्वल टू mc स्क्वायर, वापस एनर्जी. सो एक तरह से एनर्जी, मैटर एंटी मैटर एनर्जी, मैटर एंटी मैटर एनर्जी, मैटर एंटी मैटर एनर्जी. दिस एंडलेस लूप इज गोइंग ऑन. फॉर सम रीजन, एंड वी डोंट नो व्हाई, एट सम पॉइंट जब मैटर एंटी मैटर बना तो ये मैटर थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा हो गया या एंटी मैटर थोड़ा सा कम हो गया, हमें ये भी नहीं पता. या तो इसमें कुछ एक्स्ट्रा हो गया या इसमें कुछ हिसाब में गड़बड़ हो गया. वन मिस्टेक ऑफ द यूनिवर्स, राइट? दैट्स आई एम द यूनिवर्स का पहला मिस्टेक है ये. नाउ व्हेन दिस एनाइलेशन हैपेंड, कुछ मास रह गया. छोटा सा ये जो मैटर है ये रह गया. ये जो छोटा सा मैटर है, दिस इज एक्सेस. नाउ द क्लॉक बिगिंस. This is where time and space starts getting created. This is the beginning of the universe. And this happened about 13.8 billion years ago, right? But उसकी भी एक जर्नी है. So अभी तो सिर्फ excess matter है. इस मैटर से सबसे पहले बनेगा क्वार्क. वो जो क्वार्क्स हैं, सबसे छोटे पार्टिकल, as we know it, हो सकता है कुछ नीचे हो, then we'll figure out. उन क्वार्क्स से बनेगा प्रोटॉन और न्यूट्रॉन. ये करने में यूनिवर्स को कुछ टाइम नहीं लगा. दैट इज अबाउट 1 ट्रिलियनथ ऑफ अ सेकेंड. मतलब 10 to the power of -12. इट्स नथिंग. वी कांट इवन फैथम कि कितना करना है. बट इट्स अ मेजर स्टेप. नाउ you have protons and neutrons and of course electrons. Your next step would be to build something resembling an ion out of it. सो ये प्रोटॉन और न्यूट्रॉन आपस में कॉम्बाइन होना शुरू हो गए, तो प्रोटॉन अलग आ गया, न्यूक्लियस बनना शुरू हुआ। न्यूक्लियस बना। अब न्यूक्लियस बनते बनते भी कुछ 1-2 मिनट लग गया इन आवर टाइम स्केल। तो 1-2 मिनट का यूनिवर्स है, इसमें न्यूक्लियस है, बनने शुरू हुए हैं और चारों ओर इलेक्ट्रॉन घूम रहे हैं। अभी यूनिवर्स इज वेरी हॉट, वेरी डेंस, अभी छोटा सा ही है, एंड इट्स पैक्ड विद इलेक्ट्रॉन्स. All the electrons which exist today are existing in this little packet, and all the neutrons and protons which exist today are there. And the universe is expanding. It's continuously expanding. And after a minute or so, what happens is it gets hydrogen, which is just one proton, nucleus में होना चाहिए, वो बनना शुरू हुआ. Then you have helium, which has 2. And then these इनमें न्यूट्रॉन भी बनने शुरू हो गए, तो you get deuterium, which is हाइड्रोजन का भाई, जिसमें एक एक्स्ट्रा न्यूट्रॉन होता है, और ये सब बनना शुरू हो गया. तो ड्यूटेरियम बना जिसमें हाइड्रोजन है, प्रोटॉन, और बगल में एक और न्यूट्रॉन. दिस इज द न्यूक्लियस. अगर हाइड्रोजन में सिर्फ प्रोटॉन होता है, इसमें प्रोटॉन और न्यूट्रॉन है, तो ड्यूटेरियम बना, हीलियम बना जिसमें 2 प्रोटॉन होते हैं, एंड सो ऑन. तो ये बनने शुरू हो गए. बट the electrons are too fast. So even with the electrostatic force of attraction, the neutron cannot pull this electron into an orbit. So पकड़ता था orbit, वो भाग जाता था, because it's really going fast. It doesn't want to be caught. So you're now in a fog of ions of hydrogen and helium and deuterium and so on, and you are about 2 minutes into the creation of the universe, around 2-3 minutes, whatever. At this point, the universe is expanding, so it's cooling. ठंडा होता जा रहा है, ठंडा होता जा रहा है. And as it's cooling, the energy in the electrons are going down. So the electrons are slowing down. And then the next step which happens is that at some point, and it takes a few hundred years now, a few 100,000 years, so करीब 3 लाख साल लगता है. After about 300,000 years from the beginning, which is still nothing, around billions में 300,000 भी कुछ नहीं है. The combination starts happening where the electrons are slow enough for this nucleus, which is positive, electron is negative. तो ये fast तो चल रहा है, लेकिन इतना fast नहीं है. इस बार उसको पकड़ना शुरू कर दिया. So the electrons are now locked into the orbit, and the first stable element is now born, which is hydrogen. And that's why there's abundance of hydrogen. And the next one is helium. Of course, हाइड्रोजन के साथ ड्यूटेरियम भी बना. ड्यूटेरियम ने भी एक इलेक्ट्रॉन ले लिया, तो ड्यूटेरियम बन गया. ड्यूटेरियम आप लोग सुनते नहीं हो, मैं बताऊंगा आपको ड्यूटेरियम का सत्य.
Only hydrogen or helium?
Is an isotope. Deuterium is an isotope of hydrogen, and it exists today. But the beauty is, deuterium was never created again after that. So आज भी जो ड्यूटेरियम है, जो हमारे समुद्रों में एग्जिस्ट करता है, आपके पानी के ग्लास में भी एग्जिस्ट करता है. पानी का लगभग 0.06% इज ड्यूटेरियम. सो एक ग्लास पानी में 2 बूंद ड्यूटेरियम होगा. दैट ड्यूटेरियम बिगैन इट्स जर्नी एट द बिगिनिंग ऑफ द यूनिवर्स, पहले कुछ सालों में, एंड हैज नेवर बीन रिक्रिएटेड. सो एवरी ग्लास ऑफ वाटर यू टेक, द हाइड्रोजन may have been recombined, destroyed and all that stuff, but the deuterium in your glass of water is as old as the universe itself.
Fascinating.
So आपका जो पानी है वो 13 बिलियन साल पुराना है. चाहे आप चाहें या ना चाहें, किसी भी फिल्टर में लगा दें. ठीक है. सो एनीवे, ड्यूटेरियम की स्टोरी असाइड, लेट्स कम बैक टू आवर बिग बैंग. सो लगभग 3 लाख साल बीत गए, 300,000 years, एंड नाउ आई टोल्ड यू दैट दीज पॉजिटिवली चार्ज न्यूक्लियस का भी अंदर प्रोटॉन और न्यूट्रॉन है, इलेक्ट्रॉन नेगेटिवली चार्ज को पकड़ना शुरू कर दिया. फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम द यूनिवर्स गेट्स ऑर्डर in chaos, because अब वो इलेक्ट्रॉन का फॉग चला गया, because those electrons have been set into marching orders. So उनको बोल दिया तो ये भीड़ भी नहीं, बंद करो, चलो लाइन में लग जाओ सब. तो सबकी लाइन लग गई अलग अलग न्यूक्लियस के अराउंड. सो द फर्स्ट टाइम जो फॉग ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉन्स था, रैंडम इलेक्ट्रॉन्स का, वो खत्म हुआ. एंड वी गो थ्रू विच इज you can call it an ordering of the universe, but something beautiful happens. Now with no electrons to stop and clog, traffic jam खत्म हो गया. And the photons which are the carriers of light, they get free path. So traffic jam clear कर दिया, electron को हटा दिया, so that photons can start moving around at the speed of light. And as that happens, the universe lights up. Bulb जल गया universe का. And that's the birth of light as we see it. So light started escaping the universe, and the universe got का switch on हो गया बिजली का, उसका light का. That took about 300,000 years to happen. And सिर्फ लाइट ही नहीं निकली, बहुत सारी एक्सरे और सब लोग घूमने लगे. सो यूनिवर्स में सारा जो इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक रेज हैं वो सब चालू हो गई. लाइट इज़ वन ऑफ दोज. सो यूनिवर्स वाज डार्क टिल नाउ. नाउ द यूनिवर्स इज ब्राइट, वेरी ब्राइट, बिकॉज अभी तो छोटा भी है एंड इट्स स्टिल एक्सपैंडिंग. सो एक्सपैंडिंग एंड सो ऑन. This phenomena of the first light getting out of the universe is very interesting. It is so interesting that about 50-60 years ago, the scientists were experimenting on a sort of a dish antenna, and they were getting a lot of noise, stray noise जो तो उनको समझ नहीं आता क्यों हो रहा है. तो उनको लगा कबूतर बैठे होंगे, इसकी वजह से हो रहा है. They shoot them away. Nothing happened. The noise remained persistent. And that is when the birth, or rather the discovery of something which is the cosmic background radiation, or the cosmic microwave जो background आती है, जो पहले आई थी. यूनिवर्स जब 3 लाख साल पहले पैदा हुआ था, तो जब पहली बार लाइट निकली थी, जो उसका रेडिएशन था वो आज भी यूनिवर्स में गूंज रहा है. और वो यूनिवर्स का जो इतना पुराना बर्थ या लाइट का सिग्नेचर था, वो यू कैन डिटेक्ट इट इवन टुडे. इट्स जस्ट echoing across the universe. In fact, when you see a television, पुराना टेलीविजन, ये वाला नहीं, जो पुराने आते थे CRT वाले, लंबे वाले, उसमें अगर कोई चैनल नहीं आता था तो कुछ आता था. तो वो जो कुछ आता था ना, वो ब्लैक और वाइट ऐसे कर कर आवाज़ आ ना, वेरी इरिटेटिंग. बट अ पार्ट ऑफ दैट, मे बी 1% or so, was coming because of that radiation.
The original light.
The original release of light by the universe some 13.8 billion years ago. Same with radio. Radio station के बीच में वो चें आता है ना, आवाज़ें आती हैं ना, वो radio when you switch between. A part of that it comes from that.
It's like we're talking about someone who existed since the beginning of time.
It is everywhere.
Yeah.
That radiation, that microwave background is everywhere. So that background radiation exists everywhere in the universe and it's just echoing. तो आप ब्रह्मांड में कहीं भी चले जाइए, रेडियो में उसकी आवाज़ ज़रूर आएगी. So you'll be able to get that 1% of that noise. That noise is it's like the humming of the universe. You know, it's like the
beautiful
sound of the universe. The sound that the universe was born and light was released. And then of course the stars were born. It took a few million years for stars to be born, because stars बनाने के लिए you have to concentrate hydrogen. So वो concentration हुआ hydrogen का. They got together thanks to gravity, and then the stars were born, and then the stars died, and so on. In fact, our own star was born approximately 9 billion years after the universe was born, and it's halfway through. So stars were born, and then much later, when the stars started dying, the big ones, you had other things like the supernova and the bigger things of the universe which started happening. We don't know how old black holes are, but black holes may be quite old. So there are something called primordial black holes. It may be older than stars. We don't really know much. But stars के बाद फिर ये सब बने. अब जब ये सब बन रहा था, तो शुरू में मैंने आपको बोला हाइड्रोजन बना, हीलियम बना. जब स्टार्स बनने शुरू हुए, तो stars are capable to make elements till ferrous, which is ऑक्सीजन, आयन. सो आयन तक वो बना देगा स्टार के अंदर, लेकिन आयन के ऊपर, लोहे के ऊपर किसी भी मटेरियल को आप स्टार में नहीं बना सकते. उतना प्रेशर नहीं होता कि फ्यूज कर दे. फॉर दैट यू नीड बिग स्टार्स टू डाई. एंड व्हेन सुपरनोवा हैपेंस, दैट इज व्हेन यू बिल्ड एलिमेंट्स व्हिच आर हेवियर देन आयन. तो पीरियोडिक टेबल देखिए आप, बुक में भी है वैसे. एंड यू इमेजिन द फर्स्ट टू, हीलियम एंड हाइड्रोजन, वर बोर्न एट द वेरी बिगिनिंग. फिर वो पूरा नीचे सारे मिला करके, वो पोटेशियम, सोडियम, सब कार्बन मिला करके, टिल Fe, जो iron, which is till iron, which is ferrous, you get it in stars. Everything else which is beyond Ferris, the lead, the uranium, and many more, they were all born in supernovas. So they were born much later when the stars died, they were born. So that's the, so in fact, if you go by the periodic table, one beautiful thing is happening is you are also seeing the age of each one of them. So hydrogen is the oldest, then helium, and then
Helium,
as you
lithium,
go.
magnesium.
In exactly the same order, this thing. And the big jump happens between helium to lithium, and then from iron to the next one. So that is when quantum change happens in the universe, where something new has to be, the factory has to be changed, essentially. So in the book, that's why I call it the supernova factory, because it's a factory to make complex things, and the universe decided to do that. Now, will the universe make more material in future? We don't know. The universe, we are not really sure that maybe supernova की तरह कुछ और भी होगा, and then it'll make even better and bigger elements. We don't know. But that's the story of Big Bang. It explains how things were born, how elements came into being, and how stars and many other cosmic things were also
But it is
born.
still. So now we are going to territory in which we are going to explore ancient India's role.
Okay.
Their entire ecosystem, whether there was an ecosystem in ancient India wherein they were discovering astronomy, or whether they were exploring space, or who were the people. But I want to quote something from the book, and then we'll go deep into it. So there is mentioned in the book, in India, the stars have been part of an enormous storybook called the Puranas for thousands of years. We are all aware of Puranas. One of the stories from this great book called the Bhagavata Purana tells us about how the stars and planets move across the sky. It is believed that all the stars and planets dance through space just like a dolphin glides through the ocean waves. This grand dance is often referred to as Shishumara Chakra, or the dolphin disc. It is believed that the band of stars we see forms the abdomen of the dolphin and is called Akash Ganga, which means the Ganges rivers of the sky. Now, Srijan, I know that, growing up in Indian ecosystem, I have always heard about these stories in Puranas, Devi Purana, Shiv Purana, Bhagavatam. All these stories I've very much familiarized myself with. I've also heard of a scientist named Aryabhatta when I was growing up. It was a part of CBSE or NCRT ecosystem as well. And that we were great space explorators. Our Indian sages and scientists they had the knowledge. So I want to understand your perspective, and I want to explore this part. What do you think was ancient India's interest in space study, in understanding? Do you think that they were able to understand a lot of things? Do you think they were able to discover a lot of these things even before a lot of the Western counterparts were able to prove them? So I just want to understand India's ancient history with respect to the space exploration and the entire science of astronomy as a whole, with as much as concrete proof as possible that yes, this is what was there, in a hope to inspire our upcoming generation that yes, this is something which was a part of our DNA, something that we have celebrated and something that we can celebrate further. So from that perspective, I just want to understand this ecosystem.
Right. See, it's a tremendous journey of a civilization. India as a civilization is the oldest surviving civilization in the world. And because we were bountiful in terms of our resources, we had fertile land, we had water. If there was too much heat, the glaciers will melt, the rivers will feed you. If there was less heat, then the rain will be higher. So your water was balanced in that way. So India was very lucky, and it's still lucky in terms of natural resource. So we could focus, and we are protected by the mountains and ocean. So we were very lucky to have that ecosystem, a long-lasting civilization which had the room to maneuver into science. We were not left, hand to mouth. So that was taken care of. So we could put resource into science. And that is the reason why our work on science and technology has been remarkable through ages. We had the resources to create and fund scholars whose sole job would be to do research. which at that point no civilization could do.
I think the kings used to support them as well.
Yeah.
Food and everything would be taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. Kings, and also the way our religion is there. That somebody who's a learner, somebody who's a scholar will minimize their consumption and survive on bhiksha, and the people will give bhiksha, for which it's considered to be a holy act. So the society was willing to fund the scholar. The scholar was willing to live within his means or her means. But there was no distinction of man and woman. A woman can also become a learner, a scholar, and we have examples of that, at least in the ancient India where you talk about. And all this had a state's patronage, the kings. And we were able to build, recently I was in Kashmir, and King Kanishka did the fourth or the third World Buddhist Conclave, and it was like G20. So all scholars who were Buddhist or otherwise, nobody really stops you, they would come and they would discourse, they had discourse and discussion, and it's a beautiful land. People should go there. You can go there, there's no ticket, nothing. It's beautiful, and it's Kashmir, not far from Srinagar. And you see the whole mountain is full of these old 2000-year-old structures which still survive. And they were there like जैसे हमने G20 बनाया था ना, वैसे उन लोगों ने बना रखा था. So India used to host these conferences. India was the country which made the first residential university.
Residential university. Was it Takshila or
Nalanda?
Nalanda.
Nalanda was the bigger one. Takshila was also a great university, but Nalanda is an entirely different scale because it was far more international in that sense. And Takshila is also there. And Nalanda became a residential university where thousands and thousands of people from interdisciplinary act could come and talk. And you had the Chinese, and you have to read the account of people like Hun Sang. And the way he says that, that in my mind, he starts his journey in China, his book. And he talks about how everybody used to talk about Nalanda. Like we talk about Harvard, no? Like we talk about, wo dekh ke aayenge, wo, whatever is your favorite. The Statue of Unity dekh ke aayenge. Statue of Liberty, Unity to hamare यहाँ है, but Liberty देख के आएंगे, and so on. So people used to talk कि नालंदा एक बहुत ही बड़ी यूनिवर्सिटी है, वहाँ पे इतना लोग इतने इंटेलिजेंट हैं, इतने स्मार्ट हैं, वो ऐसा करते हैं, वो वैसा करते हैं.
So in China they used to say this about India.
That's what they used to aspire. Nalanda was a global icon in those times, and he said, I aspired as a child to go there, but my father would not allow me. He wanted for me to go into government service. China had a whole bureaucracy, and he said, मैं वो करूँगा. But then his father went through a major economic crisis and all, so he ran away, and he came to Nalanda. And a lot of people across the world aspired to see hai kya. So we built all these things, and how it was built was it cannot be built by people, it had to be built by kings. So the kings would allot villages and the revenue would go to fund universities like Nalanda. Nalanda is not the only university, by the way. They had many universities in that era.
In Kashmir also, I think there was a very famous...
Many universities. It was part of your royal duty to promote science and scholarship and art and all these things. So culture and science was a part of the religious duty. It was part of your royalty. You had to do this. And so now coming to the individuals you mentioned. Interestingly, many of those are from one university, Nalanda. Aryabat is from there. Brahmagupta is from there. Many universities many people are coming from a single university. And we could, and it's not just science. For example, the grammar of the world was Panini. The whole idea of subject, predicate, grammar, comma, full stop, all these things which you so happily use now, was started in India, and Hindi and Tamil, or rather Sanskrit and Tamil, being the oldest surviving religions of the world, which had grammar, that grammar became the basis for all Western languages.
I think even Sage Patanjali wrote a very good commentary on grammar, not commentary, but his work on grammar is also there.
Patanjali has done Yoga Sutra. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is amazing. You had Kannad, Rishi Kannad, who gave the atomic theory. He talked about breaking the atom.
Yes, I've heard about him.
How long you can break. So you can say you take a grinder, you grind it, you then grind it further, then you grind it further, and at some point you'll stop grinding, because no matter how much you grind, it's ungrindable, unbreakable beyond that point, and that point is an atom. So Anu, that's how Anu comes into being. Fibonacci series is done by an Indian mathematician. Boolean algebra is...
all these things are facts, right? As in, we know that they have done. Is it written somewhere?
It's written in Fibonacci's book. Fibonacci himself writes in the book that it is from an Indian sage, and that's the first page. Just acknowledgement
Shame
likhte ho
that
na.
we even don't know that.
Yeah, so it's a shame we don't know, and I'll tell you why we don't know. There's another reason to that. It's a scam actually. It's not even a shame. I'll tell you why it's a shame and also a scam. Fibonacci wrote in his own book that this is by a rishi called Pingal, who he read in Indian scripture, and he picked this beautiful number series which is useful in from biology to computer science, which is Fibonacci series. And then they just tore off the first page, acknowledgement, and said, Fibonacci ne banaya, Western power, Western power. So that's how it happened. And it's a scam because this is how our education system, which was revamped in 1800s, early 1800s.
But the colonial powers, right?
By the colonial powers, who, there's a person called Macaulay, who was sent to India with the specific purpose to make Indian education more conducive to the British needs. So that, we are educated in ways so that we are better slaves. So the slaves cannot be taught glory.
Yeah.
You can't have glory in your civilization and be a good slave.
Yeah.
To be a good slave, you should think that the master has a better civilization.
We need to aid that.
Yeah, and they are racially superior.
Yeah.
And that we are basically dumb people who were born out of pigeons and stupid half animal people. And that's why they are better than us. So the Western construct was that let's steal everything from India. Let's rewrite in our own terms. Let's never acknowledge anything, and let's simply pass it on to Indians as if we have done it. And then over a period of 50 or 100 years, the Indians will forget at all that there was a person called Pingal. You've never heard of Pingal.
No.
Most people have not heard of Panini. Yeah. Most people don't know Rishi Kannad.
Or Shushustra also, for that.
Tell me one thing which was not made in India. Na? From surgery to Ayurveda, from mathematics to astronomy, and from biosciences to nanomaterials. The world's first nanomaterial was made in India. It's called wood steel. And
Damascus steel.
Damascus steel is wood steel, and wood steel is made in Tamil Nadu. And that was the world's first, and the Romans were fighting with that steel. Yeah. We never talk about it. We never talk about Arthashastra.
Yeah, we don't.
Kautilya Arthashastra was used by Obama to come out of the 2009 economic crisis. Quantitative easing is an Indian concept, which Chanakya proposes, and that's how the Mauryans fought the wars against their adversaries by quantitative easing. That's how he used to, and also, initially you had money which was 100% valued in the coin itself. He says mix it. So managing inflation and the concept of M1 money. M0 money is everything which you have is M0, but M1 money is the derived money is an Indian concept. So you had all these things. You had formidable currency exchange systems. You were the best shipbuilders. An Indian ship would outlast a Western ship by about 50% time. Bengal shipping industry,
okay,
the
I
shipyards,
was not aware of that. Wow.
They were in huge demand. A British ship would last 12 years. A Bengali ship would last 20 years. There was a huge demand for shipbuilding. And the other side also, Gujarat also, they were building a lot of places like Bharuch and all. They were making a lot of stuff of that kind. And those traders have footmarks all over Europe and all over Africa, Northern Africa. Nobody talks about it. So what Macaulay did was that in a single stroke of with the administrative power, we completely wiped off our own history. That's a scam. The shame is, we didn't do anything about it.
We let it happen.
After 47. No, let it happen. तब गुलाम थे. क्या करोगे? मारेगा वो तुम्हें. They will break your thumb. They will kill you. They will do whatever they want. The British were tremendously horrible people.
Yes.
I mean, back then they were.
Yeah,
and what
the
they did,
are there everywhere.
$40 trillion was stolen in today's term.
Famines were manufactured in
1943 famine was manufactured in a single year. Churchill killed more people in India than Hitler killed in the gas chambers in that year.
And he had the galls to say that why isn't Gandhi dead yet?
He said these Indians breed like rabbits; they should die like beasts. Yeah. And if everybody is so hungry, why is Gandhi alive?
Why is Gandhi alive?
And yet, I'm surprised when Indians give gifts of Churchill's quote to each other.
Yes,
the book of Churchill, I saw it in Connaught Place, it was selling. And I was like, what is this selling? This man is a murderer of my people.
Yes, he was.
And he never wanted to liberate India.
Absolutely.
The British, when they left India, they left India in a way that they wanted India to become a dominion power.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they left it in a chaos.
Yeah.
So that it dies in 10 years so that we can retake it. We went through a giant conspiracy of 250 years at least. And education became a victim of it. Because education, with Macaulaysm, this whole fascination, and part of it is the language we are using, English. And because we were fascinated by English, and we still are fascinated by English, we never moved out of Macaulaysm in a true sense. The English still dominated the Indian education system.
Yeah, so I know a lot of politicians, they call themselves Macaulay Putra.
Macaulay Putra, हाँ. तो फिर, I mean, we're still fascinated by, let's say, the convent education system.
So now, see, I understand that the brainwashing has been done, but now that we know, now we have the power, we have the administration, we have everything, why still the pace is so slow? My problem is that, okay, I know that we had ancient glories in science and technology, but I feel that sometimes Indians believe that that is enough. That yes, there was a time when we used to score 100 runs, but now we're getting out on dock again and again, but that's okay. But remember the time when we scored 100 runs? So where is that mind rut coming from? Why cannot we go beyond that? Na?
Our education is under Stockholm syndrome. वो स्टॉकहोम सिंड्रोम होता है ना, वो आपको अपना अपहरण करता ही अच्छा लगने लगता है क्योंकि आपसे कुछ थोड़ी दया दिखा देता है. वी आर गोइंग थ्रू दैट. वी बिलीव दैट थोड़ा सा भी कोई हमारे लिए अच्छा बोल देता है ना,
yes.
कोई अंग्रेज हमारा योगा कर देता है,
वैलिडेशन चाहिए होता है.
हाँ, कोई थोड़ा सा हमारा बोल देता है, हाँ रेपेट हैं, थे अच्छे थे, एंड वी से अरे वाह कितना अच्छा है, वी वन बिकॉज वी बीन सप्रेस्ड सो मच दैट इवन अ टाइनी ग्लिमर ऑफ होप अपीयर्स लार्जर देन what it truly is, and it is still much smaller than what we truly deserve. That's the problem. So we need, and then the other problem is we have to be very cautious when we build syllabus on this, not to end up claiming things which we have no proof for. So ये कहना, अभी मैं बोल दूंगा तो अभी देखिए कमेंट में आ जाएगा, अगर मैं बोल दूं कि महाभारत में परमाणु बम चले थे, इसका मेरे पास कोई प्रूफ नहीं है, बिल्कुल, तो मैं इसको राउंड अबाउट तरीके से बताऊंगा और ये सब करूंगा. चले नहीं चले मुझे नहीं पता, आपको भी नहीं पता, लेकिन ये तो पता है कि अणु की थ्योरी ऋषि कनट ने बनाई थी. बिल्कुल. तो ये तो बोला हुई बात है, लिखी हुई बात है, और ये तो दिस इज अ वेरी वैलिड साइंटिफिक क्लेम टू हैव, बट वी समटाइम्स टेंड टू गेट इनटू द जॉब ऑफ जस्टिफाइंग एवरीथिंग which we believe it's true. So my belief is true, is my belief, but to make you believe what I think is true, I need to give proof, and that proof cannot be what I believe is proof. It has to be a proof which is universally acceptable.
100%. Yes.
So we should focus on those things which are easily provable, rather than, or which are readily provable. अरे लो हैंगिंग फ्रूट तो ले लो. हाँ, अब ये भी कॉन्स्पिरेसी बन जाती है, हम अपने आप को सेल्फ को इंस्पायर कर लेते हैं. We try to take all the fruits on the tree. First take the low hanging fruit. Validation तो बनाओ आप कि हाँ योग से काम होता है, चलो ले साइंटिफिकली प्रूव करते हैं. कर दिया ना, पहुंच गए चारों योग. कोई नहीं बोलता आपकी योग फर्जी है. योग 15 साल पहले सब यही बोलते थे योग फर्जी है, तो ड्रामा है, सर्कस है. बट नाउ एवरीबडी सेज योग इज ग्रेट, एंड योगा इंडिया की ब्रांड बन गई. तो आप एक एक करके ये सामान तो लो ना जो प्रूवेबल है. बिल्कुल सही. Why do we not take claim on surgery? Absolutely beautiful. The next steps would be rhinoplasty and surgery. India is the country which started rhinoplasty. सारा ये plastic surgery, rhinoplasty, नाक टेढ़ी सीधी करना, ये सब, this is all Indian concepts. But we have proof of it. We have equipments on it. We have physical equipment.
Diagrams also made of.
No, we have physical equipment of different surgical equipments which are named after the claws of the animals which they represent. So ये डॉग का पंजा है, ये बेयर का पंजा है, इसको इस कट भी यूज करना है, इसको इस कट के लिए यूज करना है. दिस इज रिटन, यूज इट, नोबडी नोज.
विमान शास्त्र, देयर इज अ टेक्स्ट दैट.
अब विमान शास्त्र आप बोलो, आई एग्री, बट आप बोलो उसने विमान बना दिया था, दैट इज अ प्रॉब्लम. एब्सोल्युटली. सो विमान शास्त्र एग्जिस्ट करता है, बट व्हेन यू द मोमेंट यू से नो वी हैड अ प्लेन, देन द प्रॉब्लम इज शो इट. यस. एंड देन दीस वेस्टर्न पीपल आर वेरी नास्टी. दीज पीपल विल शो, देखो नहीं दिखाया, ऐसे फर्जी बोलता है, इसका सब कुछ फर्जी है. दिस इज मैकॉलिज्म. This is Macaulaysm of 21st century is you take one thing which Indians have done and then you make them speak too much about it. Then one of those things would be an unproven fact and they will say everything is false. So ये तो मतलब these are just fluff. Everything becomes a fluff. So we have to be very clear in what we communicate. There has to be a department which does this research with a clear direction, only things which have proof, only things which have written scripture, which is provable by math and by science of today. So you have to, and there we should be willing to forego a few things.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying, you're so right. Absolutely.
So there is, छोड़ देना है कुछ,
बिल्कुल
बाद में बात करेंगे,
बिल्कुल,
पहले इतना तो ले लें, and that's how you win. अगर हम योग के साथ कहते हैं कि नहीं ऐसा करो, तुम ये वाला भी डाल दो, इसमें ये मंत्रोच्चारण भी डालो, ये सब कुछ डालो और सब मानो, नहीं तो हम कुछ नहीं देंगे.
बिल्कुल. This is
Then
wrong.
we'll be caught.
Yes.
We marketed योग very well.
Yeah.
Meditation was next.
Yeah.
So अब ध्यान लगाना और योग करना are universally accepted.
Yeah.
Maybe कल को मंत्रोच्चारण को भी हम प्रूव कर लेंगे. जब तक नहीं कर रहे हैं तब तक हम ये पैकेज डील नहीं देंगे. We will talk things which we have proof for, and we will keep proving things which we believe are true. If they are disproven, we will discard it. If they are proven, we will then sell it.
Thank you for saying that. I think the first man who said this thing very publicly was Swami Vivekananda. When he challenged the people, he saying, see, I am asking you, use your scientific equipments, analyze what we have. The ones you won't be able to prove, I'll be happy to throw them away. Discard them completely. But what we are able to prove, we'll build on that.
Correct.
That's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, to build that. Huh?
Thank
So
you.
such a wise man.
Yes.
120 years ago, a 20-something-year-old person goes. He was younger than either of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
When he said this, and in a country which is far different from
Yes.
ours. So what a wisdom he had.
Yeah. We were good, but look at where civilization is right now. Look at where countries are right now. It is just unreal what people are doing.
So we were rich and we have proof for it. We had knowledge of certain things which we have a proof for it. But did we know everything? And were we the only richest people in the world?
Absolutely
That's not
not.
true. That's,
Absolutely not.
So that is very, there's a difference between being proud of what we are and
Yes.
being absurdly arrogant about what we were. So we should be definitely proud of what we were.
Yeah.
And we should find more about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, as we agreed that, and as Swami Vivekananda also instructed us and gave us the advice, is that let us be open to a third-party scrutiny.
Yep.
And that's what it is. Sometimes we do not. We seem to be very emotionally hurt about if somebody questions our belief.
Do you think that's also the reason why people are not able to progress? Because we are very romanticizing nation. We are very emotional as well. We want to hold on to our past glories. Very difficult to convince ourselves that we have more job to be done, yaar. It's not over.
We are an emotional country. As a society, we are a very emotional country. There's little doubt to that. And that is not just about science or knowledge, it's about our daily life.
Yeah.
It's from cricket to everything, One day you want, these guys have done great. On the other day you want them to be thrown out. And we have very strong reactions to any stimuli. While being emotional as a society is good because then we are compassionate. It helps us also, we are creative. Emotions bring creativity. But we must be cautious that emotions also tend to temporarily suspend faculty.
Yes.
And we have to be rational and logical. To be in most things in life, you have to be rational and logical. Otherwise, as a democracy, if you're a very emotional society, you're prone to manipulation. Then that temporary suspension of faculty can be democratically quite disastrous.
Yes.
And we should learn a few things, even from, say, America. The way certain chasms, certain divisions, which were very emotional, for example, the race issue was very emotional. And one incident of George Floyd brought the whole nation into a pandemonium 4 years ago. And whether they chose the right person or not is a different question. But they definitely were choosing based on a single stimuli. That does happen. And there are forces, outside forces, who can harness this emotional vulnerability of nations and societies, especially when nations and societies give power to people to choose their government. So autocracies and one-party states like our neighbors, some of them, and also non-state actors can manipulate you if you're very emotional. So India needs, and that's why scientific thinking becomes very important. That's why I said scientific thinking is not just about science, it's about your daily life. It's about how you think, what you believe. So this whole cancel culture, for instance, is very, very dangerous.
I absolutely agree.
I don't care whether you may not like of, for example, this joke thing happened recently, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a bad joke. Horrible joke.
Yeah.
But a bad joke is not jail.
Yeah.
There is no legal offense in being stupid.
Yeah, it's a new law to the society.
Yes,
as well.
get aware of it.
Yeah.
Resolve it at an educational level. Why is it that children like
And
that
don't
kind of
subscribe to that kind of content.
Don't
You have the freedom
subscribe.
to do it.
And then we should be willing to go to our children and say, look, see, you will not ban everything.
Yes.
You can't ban Netflix, right? So, and there's plenty of content of this kind. You can, if you get into a societal mindset, I'm going to ban everything which I feel is bad for my next generation. God help you.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of content, and now AI will create that content, and then foreign actors will promote that content. The algorithm for TikTok, for instance, was different for India versus China.
Yeah,
if you open
absolutely.
TikTok in China, you see children painting and dancing and doing synchronized swimming and science and all this stuff, and they're winning medals. In India, you open TikTok, what do you see? The children who are doing literally, मतलब जिसको हिंदी में बोलते हैं फूहड़ हरकतें,
बिल्कुल,
मतलब बिल्कुल ही bathroom jokes,
Absolutely.
B grade stuff which is intellectually bankrupt. And who's doing it? It's not that we are creating that content. We are creating content. People create content which gets promoted. If you promote sense in China, then people will create content which is sense. They will beautiful paintings and experiments, and that's getting promoted. If you promote, algorithm promotes nonsense, then we'll create nonsense because market forces are that way.
Absolutely.
So you must understand that this is not the problem which we are attacking. So by banning a bunch of comedians or a podcaster for some stupid comment, you do not solve anything, because the problem lies in the algorithm,
Yes.
which can, if it's not doing now, at any given point, it can condition a society by you not even seeing it. Is that hidden enemy which you never see. These are just manifestations. So we are attacking a manifestation, and ये जो obfuscation है, जो lost of focus है real problem से, that is deadly for a society. So, and all you can tell your children is that, look, you're going to see this, you decide. This is the problem of subscribing to such a thing or agreeing to such a thing, and be willing to pay the price if you go wrong. So you cannot insulate in an information age where there is more information than you can consume generated every second. You cannot insulate somebody from information. That is censorship. And censorship is not the right way to go.
Or you decide that we want to go to China way, or the government decides कि ठीक है, we'll be
Who
completely
will
like
agree?
China.
Do you want to be in China? Nobody wants to.
absolutely
In
not.
India, if you are told that you cannot criticize anyone, मतलब इस शहर में लोग सुबह का अखबार उठाते हैं और प्रधानमंत्री को क्रिटिसाइज कर सकते हैं. आप चाइना में ये नहीं कर सकते हैं. आपको जेल हो
Absolutely, you
जाएगी.
can't.
You can't do that.
And they're very clear. They have the rules like that. They know this is not possible.
So they are a different society, and they are a society with 90% a single caste.
Yeah.
They have almost one religion
Yes,
and
you're
one
so
single
right.
caste. They are homogeneous society.
Homogeneous society like Korea and Japan.
So we are not a homogeneous
Yeah, we are
society.
not.
Our model will not work.
Absolutely.
For them, their model will not work for us.
One nation, one people is very easy for them.
Yeah, they are one people.
Yeah, one people.
We are one nation, multiple people.
Yeah, multiple people.
So, and bringing that oneness in those multiple people will only occur if we have a relative degree of two things. Some tolerance and endurance. People will criticize us. People will say things we don't like, but we have to criticize it in a healthy manner, but endure it. They have the right to exist. We have to tolerate that. And the second is resilience. Just because something is said which I do not agree to, doesn't mean that I am so badly hurt that it occupies my entire space and time. So I have to focus. I have to be resilient to things which I don't like.
Yes.
I have to be enduring people who I don't like they say things which I don't like. They're different from me. And I have to tolerate them. And in that, you will be able to build unity. And nothing will stop this country, I believe strongly, if we are united. Nothing can save this country if we have micro divisions.
Yes.
So India has to, at a very cosmic level, it has to focus on its own model. And we are beautiful at that, aren't we? UPI works better than in India than in US. US में ऐसे लोग पे नहीं करते जैसे हम कर देते हैं.
Absolutely.
हम कर लेते हैं. कितने 2-3 साल लगे हमें, ने कर दिया. So India is brilliant at when it really understands its problems and opportunities and builds. Yeah, when we understand ourselves, खुद को आईने में देखते हैं और तब कुछ बनाते हैं, तो it works beautifully for us.
Yes.
Problem तब होती है जब हम बाहर से मॉडल इंपोर्ट करते हैं.
I remember one unique feature that Indian e-commerce got that was not even there outside was when Flipkart introduced cash on delivery.
Yeah,
Same
COD.
thing. Understanding how we are and
Yeah.
then finding solutions to address that problem.
And if COD was so bad, then it would not have survived
Absolutely.
a decade
It
almost.
is thriving.
It's thriving. I mean, everybody is doing it now, which means ऐसा नहीं है कि Indians पहले हुआ कि लोगों ने मंगाया, पैसे नहीं दिए, सामान ट्राई किया, वापस कर दिया. But all these companies have survived and grown. So which means cash on delivery, return policies, all these things work. So ये जो assumption था कि हम इतने nasty people हैं कि हम एक दिन पहन के छोड़ देंगे, नहीं हुआ ऐसा.
बिल्कुल.
है ना. इस देश में माइक्रो फाइनेंस सर्वाइव करता है. माइक्रो बैंकिंग, गरीब आदमी पैसा वापस दे देता है लोन का. आप अपने दोस्त को पैसा देंगे, वो शायद वापस ना करे, लेकिन अगर आप किसी इकोनॉमिकली डिप्राइव्ड व्यक्ति को लोन देंगे तो वो वापस करेगा. सो ऐसा नहीं है. हमारी वैल्यू सिस्टम रन्स वेरी डीप एंड वाइड. सो दैट इज व्हाट वी नीड टू फोकस ऑन. So when we talked about, Aryabhat and all, do understand Aryabhat was a mathematician, was a scientist, but also a philosopher of life.
Absolutely.
So was Panini. So was every other great, he was Rishi Kannad.
So you were saying they were also appreciators of life.
They knew ethics. Kannad was also a Rishi Kannad. Pingal was also a man of scripture and ethics who preached values. So was Aryabhat. So was Brahmagupta. So was every other great scientist from the past was also a great sage.
So you are saying that having ethics is very important for science inventions.
Absolutely.
And also the way science would want to take humanity. See, I'll tell you my problem. Right now, in the starting we were discussing about time travel, when I asked you whether this is an abuse of power or not. My problem right now with private companies in space exploration is that I see that as a race of another material gain. That I would want to go to Mars to build a colony to get XYZ to be used for XYZ ABC Z. That is what I am seeing. So right now when I see Tesla, there's another guy, very famous person, Blue Ocean or Blue
Amazon वाला, Bezos,
Virgin वाला.
अच्छा वो Richard Branson. They are also now, Blue Origins is that Amazon वाला बंदी की company. I see these private companies trying their hand at space exploration, not for the love of space, Srijan. They are doing it for the resources of what it can offer. So when I look at it, I'm like, wow, perversion and corruption over here as well. You have forgotten ethics. You have forgotten the love of exploration. It's not there. I don't see any ethics over there. So if this is the direction in which these guys are taking, I mean, then तो हर चीज material gain पे ही आ गई बात in the end भी. Mahatma Gandhi in 1948, just I think 47 end, just before he passed away, he had widely advocated his own talisman, which says that when you do anything and you're in confusion of whether to do it or not, I'm paraphrasing, think of the person who, the most economically deprived, the most person who has suffered injustice. Look at imagine his face and see whatever you're doing, is it going to benefit that person or not? That should be a guiding light in your life. Our Gita also talks about, knowledge should lead to wisdom. Wisdom will lead to wealth, by the way. That wealth should be used for greater good. We should be cautious that attaining wealth is not bad as a nation or as a company or as a person. आप पैसे बनाइए, खूब बनाइए, क्योंकि wealth is not पैसा. Wealth is your resource to do something extraordinary.
It's a means.
It helps you achieve. It's necessary because it helps you get the resources to realize your dreams. Your dreams should be pure. Your dreams should be to help that महात्मा गांधी का व्यक्ति या जो गीता में जो सार लिखा हुआ है वो जो टेनेट है उस पर अगर आप सूट कर रहे हैं, you should be wealthy. A good noble heart who has wealth like Ratan Tata. We have an example right amongst us. Our own generation saw it. A good person like Dr. Kalam, who had not personal wealth but the national wealth at his command, he could direct money to a cause where he thought इसमें भारत का फायदा होगा, इसमें सोसाइटी अच्छी बनेगी. That kind of a wealth is good. One thing we should be, and I sometimes again a controversial statement, we should not become enemies of the wealth and the wealthy.
Yeah, we should not. Yeah.
The ones who are wealthy are also creating jobs. As long as the wealth is right, so if the wealth is attained through right means and through righteous path,
and
right?
I think if the good guys leave the wealth, the bad will take it.
Somebody will take it.
Somebody will take it.
So there's a difference between law and righteousness. Laws are rewritten, righteousness is consistent. Wealth attained through righteous means is good. As long as it is also deployed in righteous causes. And I think Indians and young people especially, you should absolutely aspire to become rich. Make a lot of money.
Very good.
But use that in the right way.
Very nice.
And don't become a victim of your own consumption.
Yes.
I know ये नहीं है कि बस wealth इसलिए लेनी है कि मेरे को consume करना है. Because वो consumption एक दिन आप ही को consume कर जाएगा. See, we'll all age. We're not AI yet. And none of us who are watching or talking will become non-carbon bodies. So at least for us, we will age.
Yes.
We will die. Things which you can do today, you will not be able to do tomorrow. Your body is at a stage where it's only deteriorating.
Yes.
You know, आज आप 5 किलोमीटर भागते थे, कल 4.5 भागोगे,
Yes.
एक साल बाद 4.5 भागोगे. So life will fade away. The only thing which will remain with you at the end is what you did with it,
Yeah.
not what you consumed in it. And ऐसा भी नहीं है कि zero consumption करना है, बैलेंस करना है. एक पॉइंट पे जाकर के आप कितनी महंगी घड़ी लोगे, कितनी बड़ी गाड़ी लोगे, लो आप अच्छी गाड़ी लो, लेकिन कुछ और भी करते रहो. तो यू शुड हेज योर ऑप्शंस आउट. यू शुड, एंड दैट्स हाउ. कोई चीज़ जब शुरू में करते हो ना, इनिशियली वो मार्जिनल रिटर्न ज़्यादा होता है. जैसे जैसे अधिकता होती है उसकी, उसका मार्जिनल रिटर्न कम होता है. अभी मैं आपको चॉकलेट खिलाऊंगा तो आपको अच्छी लगेगी, लेकिन 8वीं चॉकलेट पे आप उल्टी कर दोगे. यू से ये आई कांट हैव इट, इट्स नेगेटिव नाउ, सो आई कांट हैव इट एनी मोर.
अति हो गई,
अति हो जाती है. तो ये समझना हमें ज़रूरी है कि देयर इज़ अ कमर्शियल वर्ल्ड which is trying to make you want things which you can't afford, and more importantly, you don't need.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is trying to tell you कि हर अच्छी चीज़ जो आती है और हेल्दी के डब्बे पे हेल्दी लिखा होता है, वो महंगी क्यों होती है?
Yeah.
सस्ती क्यों नहीं हो जाती? ऐसा क्यों नहीं होता कि वो दूध जो एक्स्ट्रा हेल्दी है वो थोड़ा एक्स्ट्रा चीप भी हो?
बिल्कुल.
तो is my health product is actually just an expensive product in a new bottle. Now I'm not saying everybody is doing it, but what I'm saying is that you should be alert to this.
Yeah.
So that self-awareness is important, self-discovery of happiness is important, and absolutely attain wealth and use it in the right way. Use it in the right way. Just think कि क्या मैं इसको regret करूँगा. बहुत सी चीज़ें ऐसी होती हैं, for instance, मुझे लगता है कि हम ले लेते हैं, एक दिन उसको enjoy करते हैं, 2 दिन enjoy करते हैं, फिर वो साइड में चली जाती है. जो बचपन में हम करते थे, वो आदत आज तक नहीं छूटी.
Absolutely.
So think, is this my temporary need, which I'm satisfying with a permanent expense? Do I have... am I just a product of what I have, or am I a product of what I am? And how do I invest in what I am than what I have?
Yes.
So all those, and these are all in our scriptures, by the way. जो हम बात कर रहे थे initially, ये सब बताई हुई बातें हैं, मैं कुछ नया नहीं बता रहा आपको. सब पता है हमें, लेकिन कभी-कभी हम अपनी आंखें बंद कर लेते हैं.
Yes.
दिमाग की आंखें.
We do.
Right. So I think that's extremely important, right?
Great. Okay. Perfect. So, Srijan, I now would want you to please tell about Homi Labs, the vision, the mission, how did it all start? Let's go a bit into the Homi Labs and what is the future with Homi Labs and your vision.
See, Homi Lab is named after Jahangir Baba Homi, who was like a guru to Dr. Kalam, and a man far ahead of his times. So what Homi Baba, the 3-step nuclear program for India in 1950s, is still being implemented today. How it began is that Dr. Kalam and I, when we were working together, one of the core sectors of work which we wanted to do was how to make education future ready. How do we transform education to make citizens who are not only ready for present but also the future. Initially, we wrote a set of books, and one of them was Reignited, which was a major bestseller for that year. But in 2015, Dr. Kalam passed away. And as Dr. Kalam would have had it, a mission does not stop at a book. It has to stop never, actually, but definitely followed by action. And that action has to evolve. So in 2016-17, through Kalam Centre, which is something which Dr. Kalam and I had set up long ago, we revived that, we revamped that. And then around 2016-17, we wrote another book. So there's another book, Reignited 2.
Yep.
And then after Reignited 2, we started working on then the video content started grabbing attention. And we started creating live classes and video lessons from the content of the book and whatever new had happened in those chapters. A lot of things which Dr. Kalam and we had predicted in those books in 2015 are happening today, including things like AI revolution, which in 2017 book we had talked about it, and so on. So video lectures started happening, but then one thing I realized is that typical education videos tend to become boring because children, and even I, would compare them with the quality which I see in the Hollywood movies. So a movie like Interstellar started teaching me much more than a PPT on black holes. So I thought, let's do this. So our team got together and we thought we will make this entire theory of black hole, I'm taking an example, into a movie itself. So we started our own production house. We started making and taking content of futurism and science and technology broadly and creating full-fledged movies. But there's no sort of fictional storyline running on it. The entire movie is like a fact, but it's still like a story. So imagination hai, lekin, well, it's still a fiction in a way, but all the elements are true. So that's something which we started building. So we built around 2020 or so, we started building movies like on living on Mars, mining on the moon, nanotechnology, curing cancer. We made movies on journey to the black hole and so on. That went quite well. And of course, those were COVID times and COVID, we were just coming out of COVID. New technologies. And then these children, they started asking us that, can you bring us into space? Can you take us to space? Now, children can ask you anything. They don't understand the nuances of it. They said, moon pe jana hai. Mere ko, can you take me there? Can you do this? Can you do that? Then we realized that we are giving them a movie to watch and we are planting ideas, but we're not giving them an experience beyond what you see and hear. So we got into a new dimension, which was gamification. We hired the best gamers across the world. And we built an international team on creating immersive content on what we were teaching. So not only do you see that how we will live on Mars in 2052, but you can be the astronaut who goes on Mars surface in 2052 and do everything which an astronaut would have to do, like Matt Damon did in movie Martian. Right. So same movie, that kind of a stuff. So you live sort of that kind of a life. And you can use your hand controller and so on. And then a couple of years ago, the whole virtual technology of headsets, that became affordable, let's put it that way. And it became programmable to an extent where you can bring good content there. So we started a new division where we produce the world's only content on futurism on a VR. So you can basically become an astronaut on a VR. You can become a nanotechnologist. You can operate machines. You can do all kinds of education activities which you otherwise would not do on a VR. And we expanded our base from just schools to going into colleges, to going into corporate training. And we are helping universities across India realize a shortcut method to get, for example, the most complicated medical equipments. So we built the world's largest repository on that. It is India's largest repository on that, where universities could take this content. And even if you don't have a lab, suppose you're a college in Barabanki and you want to give electron microscope to your children, an electron microscope will cost you 5 crores and you'll have, 100 kids. You can't afford it. And even if you do afford it, which would be unlikely, you will not let them touch it. What if they destroy it? But when it comes to a simulation, it will cost you nothing. And you can let them experience it. Now, is it as good as real experience? No. But then in real life, you can't go to space and you can't own a microscope, electron microscope. So this is a way where, one of the biggest dreams of Dr. Kalam was to make India's education, he said in his own words, that he wants to build in India where education, where quality education with value system is not denied to anyone based on any kind of discrimination, which is economic, social, and region-wise. So we are realizing that dream where highest quality education labs and skill development ventures of the future are available to the broad spectrum, ranging from class 6, or actually class 3 is the lowest we have, but usually they start at class 5, 6, right to a research student. And it's a novel experiment which we are doing in India. And as we agreed, that India has its own set of challenges and hence our own set of opportunities.
It needs its own solutions.
Yeah, we believe this is the UPI for education. We believe that this is how a child in Barabanki will experience a lab in Switzerland through simulation.
Yeah, beautiful.
And they are doing it. And what is beautiful is that they're doing it. It's an expanding project. It has some 40,000 learners and has been widely covered now. We've made it to the front pages of newspapers. But there's far more ground to cover. And I think the Indian mind, I'm using that power. The Indian mind is able to laterally think and beautifully innovate. So even if you teach them something in a simulation, when they come to a real world, Indian mind is the most likely to be able to translate that virtual learning into a real world practical application. So if you tell them how to operate a microscope in a virtual world where they've used their hands, and we don't use remotes, we use hands now in the virtual world as well. So it's a mixed reality, and you are able to do that. Then you can also do that in real life.
Yeah.
So it's a complex process, which it's first time is obviously complicated, but then it's highly scalable.
Yeah.
And I think India's biggest strength is in its skills, big numbers, everywhere.
Yeah.
Train them, and it's extremely important because in this world of AI, where skills will rapidly change, the skills needed, it's very difficult to keep pace in the traditional model.
Yeah.
So while you need to have physical infrastructure, you need to have digital infrastructure of training, which can rapidly change with the changing needs before the physical can change.
Yeah. What a project!
Yeah,
what a project! I mean, you narrating it, I'm like, I wish if I were a part of this project. That's the impact. What a project! I think this is the need of the hour. Absolutely, Srijan. This is so beautiful.
So, yeah,
and I wish you all the best. I think Homi Labs should take over. This should become the new norm for students to learn things. The new norm. Okay, this is how you do it.
Yeah, you should come to one of our immersion centers. We are operating now 11 immersion centers across India. There are several universities. By the time this goes on air, many universities would have already collaborated. So we are on the takeoff phase. Happy to, if any one of you also wants to see,
absolutely.
Comment and we'll figure out a way which is closest to you. You should experience it. It's worth an experience.
Yes. I think that's how you'll understand exactly what it is happening. That how then you can also see it happen in front of you.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
That's what it is. Right. Okay, great.
So I think let's move on to the book
Next
reading
section.
part.
Yeah. So how do I introduce her?
Please come.
Come. So we are going to, as you requested, this will be the book reading of I Am the Universe. I will, of course, it's a big book, but I will focus on towards the very end where we have talked about the last experiment which the universe, in this case I, did, which was bringing things to life, right? So this is the para I'll read, and of course, before I go into that reading, there's a special person. I made her sit in between us. She's Preksha Sethia. I met her in 2016. I was lecturing, I was in an event in IIT Delhi, and she was in the audience, and she had some questions for which she waited for 1 hour, and then caught me outside. And then I said, you come to my office and ask these questions, because she was asking too many questions. So she came to office, to my surprise and shock. But since then, so I said, okay, you asked too many questions, so why don't you discover your answers here? And that's how she started as an intern, and she's now a Commonwealth Scholar, which is one of the most prestigious scholarships anyone can get. It's a multi-crore scholarship, which gets her to, she's like a sort of a dignitary with UK government, keeps visiting all those big guns. And she's doing PhD from University College of London and in astrophysics. Brilliant. And the reason, one more reason, is that she is the lead researcher for this book, and this book would not have been possible without her inputs and her very careful scrutiny of everything. So that's why I need to acknowledge that, and also I would like her to, sometimes I throw surprises at her. So I will read one para, and then you read the rest, and I'll explain. Okay. So this is the story, which is called A Special Destiny. Okay. And we sort of decided to add it at the very end. And life, the journey of life itself is a volume of book itself. But we thought we'll throw an anchor, and if people like it, maybe someday there'll be I Am Life. Yes. So I'll start. Now this is when the universe has made most of the things. The earth is made, water is made, the black holes are made, the sun is made. So we are now almost only about 2 billion years ago type of framework. Something incredible happened on Earth. The universe is saying, Earth. The invention of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is how plants convert sunlight and water into food. And we all consume that food. So plants are autotrophic, but we are eating plants, so we are basically also relying on them for food. Photosynthesis was a game changer. The organisms on Earth, the planet Earth, could harness the power of sunlight and start making their own food by turning sunlight into sugars. Sugars are essentially food, right? This means they did not need the soup anymore to survive and grow. This soup was the primordial soup. It was like a soup which was given to all planets by the universe, and it has some nutrition. And suddenly in this soup, alive things started, very small alive things started, like unicellular se bhi kuch pehle, which did not have a nucleus as well. These things started emerging, but then the soup soon ran out of nutrition. So they were all hungry. So now this is how photosynthesis comes in. And I'll explain why, from a very philosophical angle, it is so important. As these sunlight-loving organisms flourished, they began to transform the earth. They took in carbon dioxide from the earth and released oxygen. This not only started to change the air's makeup, but also led to huge deposits of iron oxide, known as banded iron formation. Iron oxide is rust. By reacting minerals in the rock. At first, oxygen did not pile up in the air because it was too busy reacting with iron and other elements. But eventually, there was enough oxygen to start accumulating in the atmosphere. Okay. The accumulation. So, now Preksha will read and I will...
The accumulation of oxygen in the atmosphere, known as the Great Oxygenation Event, occurred around 2.4 billion years ago after my birth. Almost halfway through my current age. Over time, as more and more oxygen was produced, it began to build up, leading to the rich, breathable atmosphere you all enjoy today. This oxygen had another trick up its sleeve. When sunlight hits an oxygen molecule, it breaks apart to create ozone. Sufficient quantities of these ozone molecules resulted in the formation of ozone layer, which is a kind of sunscreen for the planet. This shield protected life from harmful ultraviolet rays, allowing living things to venture out of ocean and onto land for the very first time. Life on Earth kept evolving from single-celled microorganisms in the primordial soups to the incredible diversity of plants and animals you know today. This story is not just about survival, but about how life changed the planet. Photosynthesis did not just feed the early microbes, it laid the groundwork for everything that followed, turning Earth into a home for all kinds of life. Everything around you, what you eat, breathe, drink, and see, can trace its origin back to the primordial soup. Your lettuce, avocados, oranges, bananas all have emerged from that ancient mixture. Perhaps they have just become more exotic. Had it not been those living organisms which in their desperation learned photosynthesis, none of us would be here. At a cellular level, what incredible courage and innovation this was. It teaches us that even when resources are running low, one must figure out a way to fight and survive. There is always a way. Life emerged from a great test, proving its resilience and adaptability. So remember this. Life's journey from primordial soup to the vast diversity of existence today is a story of perseverance. No matter how dire the circumstances, there is always hope, always a way forward. Life itself is the ultimate story of courage and survival.
Right. Okay. So, the important part is that life is a story of great courage. This is how the book sort of ends. And why should I end a book in a very philosophical message? Because that's what the universe is. The universe throughout the beginning of the book is full of mistakes. It does so many wrong things and mathematical errors. But in those mistakes, it is able to discover the creation of this beautiful tapestry of stars and sun and planets and black holes and us and butterflies and flowers, all because it made some mistakes. But in the end, the universe itself gets a lesson from us, which is life. The universe gave us a small amount of the primordial soup, which you were talking about. Primordial means really old. So the really old soup with some sulfides and nitrites and some nutrition. And somehow in those primordial soups, and I suppose in many every planet would have had one. And in those primordial soups emerged the earliest form of life, which ate this soup. And then the soup ran out. For most planets, the soup ran out and the early life died. But somehow on Earth, and maybe other planets as well, a few others perhaps, definitely not in our solar system it seems, but maybe somewhere else also, these living beings, which had no brain really, which had nothing which you see as they were more primitive than an amoeba or a bacteria would be of today. These life forms refused to die. The soup ran out, but they said, what do we have? Which is the resourcefulness and the courage to survive. The courage to say, I'm not going to give up. I will see what I have and I will not worry about what I don't have anymore. The soup is gone and the universe, like a little toy, I would have experimented and I may have wanted them to finish. That was their destiny. But what these living beings on Earth did was that they said, I have sunlight. I have whatever water or whatever other minerals were there, and I will use them to learn photosynthesis. And I will convert this miraculous thing to use sunlight, photons, develop something like a chlorophyll, early form of whatever it was, and break down water molecule to produce energy. And I will take carbon from the atmosphere and I will add on to my weight. That's how trees were built to begin with. And had they not been so courageous, innovative, resourceful, and they had never had the spirit that I will never give up, no matter how dire the situation is, even the universe I did not give them enough soup, we would not have had life as we know it.
Beautiful.
That's how the universe ends its journey as of now. So the universe makes mistakes, those mistakes make life, then life shows resilience and courage and the universe learns from them. Right?
Beautiful.
So that's how this is the end of the book. I wanted to read the last portion because I think it connects us.
Yeah,
right?
it connects. And Srijan, thank you so much for again inviting us, for doing this thing, for reading. You have an amazing voice. The way you were reading it was brilliant, and thank you, Preksha, for also reading it and for all your contribution and everything. And thank you again. I hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Thank you, Raghav. Thank you for coming, and thanks to your team as well. They've been very hardworking. It's a long podcast.
Yeah.
And a lot of things go back and forth. So great work to you and your team. And I am glad to have met you. It's good to follow your work. And what I can do is that once you release your podcast, if any of your, all your viewers who've been very patiently listening, if you have questions, please put it on your comments.
Yes.
We will try to answer and maybe
100%.
subsequently take another podcast and maybe answer those questions alone.
100%.
Right?
That would be great. I mean, it would always, we love to follow up and do on different topics and subjects.
Absolutely.
Because as you said, we also want to be as authentic as possible.